What I want you to explain is the logic behind what you're doing.
It is said that the people are revolting.
Senators, think on us.
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go. But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Welcome, everyone, one and all dissidents. How's everybody doing on this Sunday evening for a regularly scheduled prime time Sunday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobbular, of course.
Hello.
We got a big crowd in here tonight, as we figured we would. 416 strong in the YouTube chat, 134 strong and filing in over on Rumble. Appreciate you all being here. Pretty soon, at the rate we're going, we'll be able to hit that Iron Maiden first thing out of the gates.
Nice.
Yeah,
and
that's
you know who's
goal.
really going to
Winning.
appreciate that? Our new fans in Egypt.
That's right. We've been welcomed to Egypt. Russell was telling me we've gotten some comments saying that we should maybe go do a live show in Egypt.
Yeah, live from the Sphinx. Do Dissidents
Exactly.
with Eric Clapton.
Yeah, see if we can get Eric Clapton out there. But yeah, no, it has been a great couple of weeks. A lot of audience growth. We were just looking at our analytics today. Turns out over the past 28 days, only 60% of the audience has been in the U.S. So big foreign audience, big global audience over the past month. So that's been great to see. And we thank you guys
very
all
big
for
men
being
in
here.
Cairo.
Yeah, exactly. So we thank you all very much for being here wherever you are. If it's 7 o'clock on the East Coast, 4 o'clock on the West Coast, or the wee hours of the morning over across the pond, wherever you are, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button over on Rumble. Got a lot to talk about tonight. It is getting cold here in October. The wind is getting very blustery. It is starting to feel like Halloween. And speaking of Halloween, I just want to make mention, because I know we said we were going to do a Halloween movie recommendation every episode in October. That just kind of fell apart because every episode has to be about the same thing now. So we felt like, I mean, what could we do? Like, we can't really do a movie related to a different theme because every night's the same theme, right? Or what could we do? So we figured we'll just abandon it. Fuck it. We'll do it for Christmas. We'll do Christmas movies in December.
Yeah, we'll do Christmas horror movies.
Christmas horror movies. There you go. Maybe we'll do an Alice's Restaurant sing-along for Thanksgiving. That'll be something.
Yeah, I mean, you chickened out on the sing-along I was trying to get together for Halloween, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, Monster Mash was good. He wanted to do Werewolves of London. I like Werewolves of London. I could play that song.
I mean, we should.
Yeah, maybe it'll be fun.
All right, people in the chat. We wanted to do a sing-along. I wanted to do a sing-along of Werewolves of London for Halloween as a special thing, as a special Halloween thing. So, should we do it or not? You got to tell me. You got to tell me now, because I got to practice.
Yeah,
Keaton can just pick that up, right? I mean, I don't know what your skill level is. Yeah,
I can play it in my sleep.
I mean, well, that's why I said, like, Monster Mash. Because I've never played it, I just don't really have enough time to learn it. But Werewolves of London, I already know it.
It's basically the exact same progression as Sweet Home Alabama, just a different time.
It's the same
different
shit.
style,
Yeah.
same shit.
Yeah.
It's all the same shit. Anyway, folks, we got a lot to get to this evening. It is Sunday, which means we do have our Q&A segment after the show. So I sent out the call-in link to Patreon members and paid Substack subscribers. They'll have call-in access to the Q&A. The Q&A portion will be exclusively on Rumble. So after the show, we will take a 5-minute intermission. And then if you want to stay for the Q&A, head over to the Rumble channel. Oh, see? My people, the no's have it. Thank God. Thank God.
They don't. No, they don't. That's
yes, they do.
That's one guy saying it again and again and again. Everybody else said yes.
Do this Edgar Allan Poe
No, there's
style.
one guy who said no again and again and again.
I'm counting it. It counts.
No, that is some Trump counting. Man.
2,000
There's
over
one
here.
guy. Everybody else said. I think 2 people said no. One guy said no like 6 times, and everybody else said yes.
It counts. I'm counting it. All right. Yeah. Folks, like I said, we are going to do a Q&A after the show. That'll be over on Rumble. So at the end of this show, we will take a 5-minute intermission, give everybody time to switch over. A lot of you guys are over there on Rumble already. If you're not a Patreon member, you're not a paid Substack subscriber, and you don't call in, you can submit questions to us in the Rumble chat, and we will take those after the program. But let's get started, because we got a lot to get to today. And we've been talking a lot. Obviously, Israel is the only real issue that's been on our minds. But what did we say last show and the show before? That free speech is really the mother of all issues, because without that, you can't talk about any other issue. You cannot converse. You cannot express what needs to be expressed. And this is a very bad sign heading into election season. We obviously know that the Biden administration was blocked by federal courts from pressuring social media companies. However, the Supreme Court has thrown the Biden administration a bit of a lifeline here, or at least given them some stall time. The Supreme Court allows the White House to continue work to combat controversial social media posts. This according to the Associated Press. The Supreme Court on Friday said it would indefinitely block a lower court order curbing Biden administration efforts to combat controversial social media posts on topics including COVID and election security. And now I have a feeling there's another issue that they may want to add to that list, an issue that they've already started censoring people left and right over, especially heading into an election year. The justices said they would hear arguments in a lawsuit filed by Louisiana, Missouri, and other parties accusing administration officials of unconstitutionally squelching conservative points of view. The new case adds to a term already heavy with social media issues. Justices Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Clarence Thomas would have rejected the emergency appeal from the Biden administration. At this time in the history of our country, what the court has done, I fear, will be seen by some as giving the government a green light to use heavy-handed tactics to skew the presentation of views on the medium that increasingly dominates the dissemination of news. That is most unfortunate, Alito wrote in dissent. White House communications staffers, the Surgeon General, the FBI, and the U.S. Cybersecurity Agency are among those who would have been affected by the order. The lawsuit said they were among those who coerced changes in online content on Facebook, X, and other media platforms. Notably, the companies themselves are not part of the litigation. A panel of 3 judges on the New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals had ruled earlier that the administration had likely brought unconstitutional pressure on the media platforms. The appellate panel, said officials cannot attempt to, quote, coerce or significantly encourage changes in online content. The Justice Department said the appellate ruling and a much broader order issued by a federal judge in Louisiana that the appeals court narrowed were riddled with factual and legal mistakes. Last slide here. The Fifth Circuit erred in finding coercion by the White House Surgeon General's office and FBI because the court did not identify any threat, implicit or explicit, of adverse consequences for noncompliance. I think that's absolutely insane. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar wrote, "Indeed, the Fifth Circuit adopted a definition of coercion so lax that it deemed the FBI's action coercive simply because the FBI is a powerful law enforcement agency, and the platforms sometimes but not always remove the content if flagged. The Fifth Circuit had previously narrowed a more sweeping order during the summer from a federal judge who wanted to include even more government officials and prohibit mere encouragement of content changes." So this was not a court ruling, but they did temporarily allow, until they actually hear the case, for the Biden White House to basically continue to recommend certain censorship practices. And of course, not just the White House, the FBI, Surgeon General, heading into an election year. So depending on how long it takes to actually hear this case and decide this case, we could be well into election season. In fact, we, in all likelihood, will be very far into election season before the government is instructed to stop censoring, if they are instructed to do so at all. So not final news on this front, but certainly not good news on this front.
We hit that one pretty quick, huh?
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby indeed. So yeah, this is where these times are just absolutely insane. Clarence Thomas is one of the biggest criminal miscreants ever to sit on that court, and he's on the right side of this issue.
Samuel Alito not far behind him. He was bribed too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Alito, Gorsuch. I mean, these are people we don't agree with about anything, and this is what we mean when we say it's a very dicey proposition to argue that basic lesser of two evils favoring the Democrats. If you really care about speech, I don't see that. Who are the people on the court who wouldn't have even taken the case and just let the precedent stand? Now, there is the best way to interpret this, and given the makeup of the court, I'm kind of inclined to interpret it this way, that the court took it because they want to rule against the government's case. I would be very surprised if this court rules with the Biden administration on this. So if there's any good news here, there are a few rays of light here. I think post-Twitter files, it would be very hard for them to try to do this in the shadows. Lord knows they contact Rumble or X, they're going to release the communication to the public almost immediately. So who they can go to with this kind of coercion now, they're limited to the people who are already behaving according to the government's wishes as it is, where we are right now. They don't need to be told. They're already on board. Facebook, right? I mean, some of these other platforms are rebelling against that regime. Is Amy Pancakes really going to side with the Biden administration on this, as you nicknamed her some time back?
Yes.
I would be surprised. I would be surprised. Roberts, I don't know. I don't see it. So I'm actually cautiously optimistic, as much as it's disappointing that they're once again being allowed to meddle this way.
Yeah, by the way, back when I gave Amy Coney Barrett her Amy Pancakes nickname, we had basically no viewers. I don't even think we were on YouTube. I gave Amy Coney Barrett the Amy Pancakes nickname because she very, very strongly reminds me of a volunteer at a church pancake breakfast. You know, Saturday morning, you show up. She would be one of the volunteers, set you up with your little styrofoam plate with the pancakes and the chocolate milk. So that's the origin of that nickname. Now that we have an audience, maybe we can get that to catch on. But the other thing I would say, I mean, yeah, I take your point. The only thing that's extra troublesome about this is that the election is coming up in November. So even if they do end up striking it down, they're buying Biden so much time with this, because this is going to be 8 or 9 months before they issue a ruling. So it's really, I mean, at earliest, you're talking about next Labor Day, which I guess is technically maybe in time for the campaign season. But you're giving them another year when it really counts. I mean, you know, when they're a lame duck, it's not as potent. If they're a lame duck, if they win, which, you know, obviously that's unlikely to happen anyway. But we've seen how brutal the censorship has been just in the past few weeks as things have gone the way they have in the Middle East. I knew that the censorship was going to get very out of control very, very quickly. And, this just gives them the green light. No, this is as bad as it's ever been. It's worse than it's ever been. I knew that as soon as this happened. I knew that. And this just gives them the green light to go ahead and start, you know, requesting but not coercing, which is just absurd. I mean, how absurd is that interpretation? The FBI asked nicely for you to censor your users, but, you know, you're Facebook. You're empowered to say no. They already dragged Zuckerberg in before Congress and grilled him for hours and hours. I mean, come on. That's not intimidation. That's not coercion. I mean, that's just insane.
It's a nice social media platform you have there. It would be a shame if something would have happened to it. So perhaps on your own accord, you might remove this content. I'm not saying you have to. It's a mere suggestion from me and the boys.
Right.
It's absolutely absurd to say that these powerful government agencies that have previously brought these CEOs before Congress and lambasted them about content moderation have no force of intimidation simply by contacting these companies with those kinds of issues. Again, I'm gonna, I'm not usually the ray of sunshine here, but I'm gonna give you another bright spot. The Republicans control Congress right now. So these companies are not as under threat of that action, at least for the time being, that they're going to get dragged in front of Congress as they were at that time.
That's true. They still are subject to pressure from the executive, though.
They are. But I think, look, if I know the Biden administration, and I'd say we do at this point, they're going to embarrass themselves It's going to be very hard for them to do what they did before the Twitter files came out. I think they're going to overreach, and you're going to have these tech companies put it out before the public.
I hope so. We will see.
Some of them, not all of them.
No, of course.
Not East Berlin over here, but some of the others.
Not this one. Now, for sure. Wouldn't count on that. We do not count on that anytime soon, unfortunately. Let's take a super chat while we're here. Pat Donahue, thanks for the €10. Appreciate that. You should see David A. Pacman's take on recent. I like that. David A. Pacman. That's good. On recent part of Israel-Palestine conflict, and as far back as 1948. Nasty Palestinians didn't agree to give away 56% of their land. The guy is nauseating. Yeah, I mean, look, he's just a Democrat. I mean, people have asked me to watch some of that stuff. I have watched some of it. It's very predictable. He's just awful. I mean, that is just MSNBC online. Like, he should just work for MSNBC's streaming service. Like, there's no difference there. And I love how he takes phone calls where he doesn't actually take phone calls. He'll actually like play a voicemail from a viewer. Like he did this video today because I watched it because I've been looking for some of the Israel-Palestine stuff of his. And he took a call from a viewer, but it wasn't a call. He replayed a voicemail and he was like responding to it as it went, as if he was having a conversation with the guy, but he's just playing a voicemail. So yes, we actually take the calls here live without an ad.
And it seems like he's hired somebody to make his shirts based on what he was wearing in his school photos in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
The wardrobe department, yeah.
Very strange.
I haven't analyzed it on that level, but I'll have to take another look. By the way, folks, Jake, our producer, is in the house. Thank you, Jake, for being here. Says we are up over 300 viewers over on Rumble. Jake is fielding Rumble rants tonight, so if anybody would like to submit a Rumble rant to be read on the screen, we can display those this evening since we have Jake the man in the booth. Britsman, thanks for the $2. DD equals a 5-course meal. Vanguard, Slim Jims, and a Pop-Tart. Well, thank you. It's a nice compliment, a 5-course meal.
You.
Appreciate that. Thanks for the 99 cents, Abiding. Appreciate that very much. And Eric Husel says, you are the duo with widespread appeal. Maybe you two Jews should get a van. Make it a Scooby-Doo van. Yeah. I think
you know what the problem is? Like, Keaton had to go and reproduce. So Keaton's not going to be able to do a road trip for like another 14 years.
Yeah, that's right. It's
just going to be me and like a dog, like Steinbeck style.
Yeah, I'm taking the family to New Hampshire, though, for the primaries. We'll
they're going to come with you?
For a few, yeah, they'll come because I'm going to be there for a few days. And
going to make those kids hold the boom mic?
Yeah, I should actually bring them out and make them do some work, get some, craft services, whatever. Yeah.
Teach them responsibility.
Exactly. That would be a good idea. Get them out to see America. All right, we got some more super chats and stuff we will take in a few minutes, but here's some news in the sort of podcast online media business that we thought was worth mentioning. The problem with Jon Stewart cancellation.
Speaking of censorship.
Yeah.
Speaking of corporate censorship.
Exactly. The problem with Jon Stewart cancellation highlights a problem for Apple's content. So this was a piece written by Samuel Axon for Ars Technica regarding the news that the Jon Stewart Apple TV show has in fact been canceled. Russell, do you want to read this one since you found this one? It's up to you.
Sure.
All right. Take it away.
Jon Stewart and his weekly talk show, The Problem with Jon Stewart, are out at Apple, according to reports from the New York Times and Variety. Apple canceled the show just weeks before its 3rd season began taping. Its cancellation sheds some light on the conflict of priorities Apple faces as it leans more into content rather than just selling tools, platforms, and gadgets. The New York Times article cites several people with knowledge of the situation, saying that staffers working on the show were told at the end of the day Thursday that it would not move forward. The reason for the shift? Stewart and Apple executives, quote, had disagreements over some of the topics and guests, unquote, the sources said. Specifically, they claimed Stewart told staffers that Apple execs took issue with planned programming related to both China and artificial intelligence. Hey, man, If you don't want to make us paranoid that you're all a bunch of robots, maybe don't take exception when he wants to do a segment on artificial intelligence.
Right.
This is content moderation by the T1. And noted that with the 2024 U.S. election coming up, there might have been additional opportunities for disagreement then.
Oh, we wouldn't want that. Wouldn't
we wouldn't want
disagreements
in
between
a
a
democracy.
corporation like Apple, a child enslaving corporation like Apple, and a woke progressive host. Wouldn't want to have a disagreement there. Wouldn't want them to not be on the same page. Go ahead.
Apple does much of its business, both in production and sales, in China. And in China. I don't think I'm giving away a secret here. Jose Vega, he was just in China. He said that cracked them up in China when he did his Donald Trump, which is actually pretty good. Next time we have him on, we'll have him do his China.
Oh, his impressions are very good. His impressions are very good. He does a few of them in the upcoming documentary, which is nearing completion. We're very excited. We're going to have that soon for you folks.
I just saw a rough cut. It looks very good. Looks very good.
But you didn't see the whole rough cut. You saw the intro.
I saw a section. Yeah. I mean, but I'm assuming it doesn't fall off a cliff right after that section.
Gets better.
I bet it does. Does much of his business in China and invested heavily in the country's infrastructure. Regarding China, Apple execs may have been worried that Stewart's planned commentary could alienate customers or partners in the country. As for AI, Apple has increasingly focused on AI for software features on the iPhone. Primarily, it uses machine learning to drive things like search suggestions, photography, and palm detection. There have also been rumors that Apple plans to get into ChatGPT like large language models, which have been more controversial. We're just engaging in informed speculation about the specific reasoning, though. Apple declined to comment on the New York Times story. The show's cancellation is indicative of the kinds of challenges owners of platforms like Apple, Amazon, Google, and others face when they are producing content too. Apple TV Plus, the iPhone, and other Apple products only work with children's tears incorporated into the microchips. Right. They are... That's not in there. I'm sorry.
Russell's edit for those listening on the audio.
That was an editorial note.
Yeah.
To go back to the actual article, are used by a wide range of people, and investing in content that may be contentious for key customers or partners could create big problems for the company's overall business. It's also part of a larger pattern of streaming services struggling with the talk show format. There have been numerous attempts, but most talk shows like Netflix, Norm Macdonald Has a Show, have not been hugely successful. Oh, you think? I didn't even know that existed. In part,
well, it's easier to run a show when the host is alive, but
yeah, well,
you know,
but I didn't know.
No, it got canceled before.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah,
no, I never knew that was a show. And Norm Macdonald was one of the funniest guys out there. You'd think,
oh
how
yeah,
could
he
a show
was.
fail with Norm?
He was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't think, because they tried that with Letterman too, and it failed. I just don't think people go to Netflix to watch things like that.
Right.
In part because the business model of streaming TV is as much about the long-term value of content as it is about timeliness, and talk shows tend to focus on topics du jour. It's a good point. The problem with Jon Stewart was Stewart's first return to hosting a TV show since his much praised and widely watched tenure on The Daily Show ended in 2015. Right before he would have gotten really useful. Stewart has not yet announced any future television plans. All right, so this is, as the article points out, this is part of the problem of having content creation taken over by these technology companies that rely heavily on selling goods in China. And, you know, I know we're going to get our China stands coming at us and all that. But listen, man, I mean, they have a long history of censoring content coming into the country. That's why they had to take the Taiwan flag off of Tom Cruise's jacket for Top Gun Maverick. That's why John Boyega's face was either removed or greatly reduced on the Star Wars posters. The Black Panther, they covered over his face with a mask for that. So, you know, this, and if anyone has ever seen, and I like John Cena, and look, I mean, I can't judge. He saw his whole career going up in smoke, but if you have ever seen John Cena's apology to China, he speaks Mandarin apparently. He's like he's like a Renaissance man. He's like the Greek ideal. He's this athlete scholar. So in Mandarin, he apologized for insulting the Chinese, just begged for forgiveness for, I think his sin was to refer to Taiwan as a country.
He had to apologize for that.
Yeah, he had to apologize. See, I'm so sorry, only in Mandarin, which somehow made it seem more debasing. So yeah, this is a problem with the kind of speech you're going to get from corporations that are dependent on the Chinese market to sell and to manufacture their iPhones. I mean, it's an angle we haven't really thought a lot about in terms of censorship. And, let me make it clear for our China stance. I'm not knocking China. Like, what China wants to do in their country is their business. And, that's very much my take when we talked about the Muslim world on the Bill Maher segment. Like, what people do in their own countries, I don't think is really my business or anybody else's business. But what we do in our country is my business. And if our country is censoring its content because of the sensitivities of another country, yeah, I have an issue with that. I have an issue with that when we're doing it to not offend our government, as we were just discussing in the previous segment. So why would I not have an issue when we're bowing to the wishes of another government?
Right. And the other thing about this, I would say, is that this also, what struck me, like the question I had for myself is, what does Jon Stewart need Apple for? Like, he's Jon Stewart. He's one of the most famous commentators, in the world. If Jon Stewart started a YouTube channel and just did his own fucking show, he'd have 1 million subscribers overnight. I mean, he'd be doing insane numbers just doing what we do. Just get a streaming platform, hire a producer, hire a little crew, and he'd be in business. Like, I don't see where these giant tech companies are necessary. Obviously, we are on Google now, but we're not working for Google. Google doesn't control what we say, although really kind of it does.
I mean, it does.
Unofficially.
It does.
That's
why we go over to Rumble.
Exactly. But it's not the same. It's not the same kind of thing where they are intimately involved in the production and curation and dissemination of the show. And so now that, podcasting and YouTubing and, other platforms, Rumble, obviously, now that these are so popular and so widely used, what does a guy like Jon Stewart need Apple? Like, what do these big companies bring to the table? Norm Macdonald, too. He had a YouTube show. What did he need Netflix for? Like, what do you need it for? If anything, that just narrows your reach. You reach fewer people. I mean, Apple's not like Netflix. It's not everywhere. Not everybody has Apple TV, So, he could do a lot better just going out on his own, doing what we do. I hope he doesn't, because we don't need more competition. But he could.
I don't know that we're in the same lane.
Probably.
I mean, that show, we a few times talked about going after some of the segments he did on that show, because very often, look, I think he meant well. I think he was overcompensating for feeling like I'm this old white man that made a terrible joke about trans people once. And so now I have to uncritically adopt every postmodern critical theory that my writers are into and parrot it without thinking about it. So he did, I thought, some terrible, moronic episodes and commentary.
The Hillary Condoleezza Rice one was not a highlight for sure.
Yeah, so I thought there were a lot of misfires there, but he also did some good work, and he's Jon Stewart, and he's a voice that even if he's wrong sometimes or we disagree sometimes, I don't think he's a dishonest actor, and he's definitely a voice we'd like to have out there, and hopefully he will go do something else. And you make a good point, and this is something we brought up in relation to the strike. I think the whole business model of these platforms is about to come to an end because of AI. I think that we are very rapidly approaching the place where you can make a studio quality movie in your computer. And when that happens, the barrier to entry that makes Hollywood make sense is gone. You don't need it anymore. It'll still exist as one content creation hub of many. But just as it's already lost a lot of its power, I think what we're seeing with the collapse in box office and just one bomb after another is just the collapse of their whole business. You know, they went all in on foreign distribution. They went all in on these big superhero movies that you don't have to speak fluent English to appreciate. They killed cinema. So now you don't really have the audience for cinema going to their movies anymore. The public is out of the habit of going to see serious movies in the movie theater. Now they watch TV shows for that kind of content, you know, high quality kind of Sopranos and things like that. They don't expect that from their movies anymore. And now the people are finally like, yeah, you know, I just can't see the Green Goblin fight Spider-Man again. I just don't give a fuck anymore. You know, now that that's collapsed, they went all in on it. The whole business model is collapsing. What do they shift to now? What do they make now? They spent 20 years feeding people this fucking superhero movie garbage. What are they going to replace it with? You can't go back to making Taxi Driver. It's too late. You dumbed down the audience for too long now. You can't go back to that. They're not going to go to the movies for that anymore.
Yeah.
So I think their entire business is about to collapse.
I definitely want to see that new Scorsese movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. That looks good. 3.5 hours. That looks good. Gotta go see that.
Okay, so you know what? Yeah, that's supposed to be good. I will be very curious to see how that performs at the box office. I'll be very curious if people actually turn out to see a 3.5 hour drama. I know they came to see Oppenheimer, but it seems like that was a little more modern.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's Christopher Nolan.
Nolan, yeah, it's an event. It's midsummer and stuff like that. So yeah, probably expecting more. But I know at the theater here, it's playing every hour, so they must be at least anticipating good numbers. So we'll see, folks. You can go to patreon.com/do dissidents and help support this program. In exchange for your support, you get your name up in lights here on our thank you scroll. You also get call-in access to the weekly Q&As every Sunday night, including tonight. We will be doing a Q&A after the show over on Rumble. And so you get call-in access to those if you become a patron. And you also get access to 2 exclusive supporter streams, full-length live stream shows that we do twice a month on Rumble. Those are uncensored private shows for patrons and paid Substack subscribers exclusively. Those are a lot of fun. Our next one is going to be this Thursday, October 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So special patron exclusive show this Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And it really helps support what we do here. You can go to patreon.com/do dissidents or dodissidents.substack.com. You could sign up for as little as $5 a month. And like I said, that is the backbone of the show. Our Patreon supporters are the backbone of the show. And by the way, all of our patrons will get a shout out in the end credits of our upcoming documentary on Jose Vega. You will get a shout out in the credits. So that is a second or a fourth perk that you get in exchange for your support. You will be name up in lights for real in the end credits of our upcoming movie. Kuznetsky Bassane, thank you for the $4.99. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. DC, thanks for the $2. SCOTUS, hate to say I told you so. Did you call that one? I don't remember. I don't doubt you, but I don't remember. But if you did, in fact, tell us so, then you are right, my friends. And I appreciate the sentiment.
I think we have 666 on the likes.
On the likes, do we? Did Jake tell us that one? I don't know.
Jake, confirm. No. Somebody just said it in the comments. Don't try to trick us.
They're trying to get us there. I think they're trying to get us there. We should get there soon. We have 1,053 over in the YouTube chat, so hit that like button. Get us up to 666 likes. You'll get another Iron Maiden sound drop.
All right, so somebody said I was being low. You see, we had so many people say I was being loud that now I think I'm overcompensating.
I don't know. Jake, you can adjust Russell's microphone, though. You have access to that. So I'll leave that up to Jake. I can't tell. That's the thing about StreamYard. The only thing that's worse than about StreamYard than Zoom is that I really can't tell because this is a website. It's not a software. So Zoom is a software. So what I hear is what the audience hears. StreamYard is just a website. So Russ sounds the exact same to me, whether he's coming in hot for the audience or low. It does not make a difference to me.
Right.
And I would know because I've been a video and audio editor for 16 years now. I'm sensitive to that. So I would know if it was different on my end. It's really not. I have no way of knowing. That's what Jake's here for. So we love you for that. Thank you.
I always thought it was an All About Eve thing. I thought you were just trying to sabotage me.
No, I literally sounds the exact same. Either way.
Let Russell come in hot. They're going to hate him.
Yeah. I mean,
hate him and love me.
Scream. I can tell when you scream, and I can say, "Wow, that must be hard for people listening." With headphones, if they have the volume.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's why I'm like overcompensating and dropping my voice when I get excited.
Well, that's what you got to do.
Because like I've got in my mind, I'm gonna like blow out their ears if I,
Right. Well, that's what you got to do. You got to do that choked scream.
Right.
Veranda's videos. Thanks for the $5. When Russell laughs, a liberal loses their wings. Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, let's take this one here. Orange Ninja Turtle for $5. Who's hotter, AOC or Tulsi Gabbard? What do you think, Russell?
Okay, so this is like a fuck, marry, kill kind of thing.
No, it's just it's what he says there. Simple.
All right. Empirically, objectively, AOC. But it's one of those things where, like, some people are leg men, some people are breast men. I'm a personality man, so I would never be able to get past that.
That's interesting. Because Tulsi's not exactly. I mean, she's kind of boring. She seems like has a boring personality. So I don't know. I'll say Tulsi just to even it out, just so we're not accused of bias. I was hedging. I was waiting to see what he said. Figured the single guy will go first. Can't go wrong with that. It only makes sense. I would defer to you.
No, I mean, AOC is an incredibly beautiful woman. I mean, Tulsi is nice too. She I wouldn't kick her out of bed for eating crackers either. So yeah, that's a tough one. It's a tough one actually. Now that you say, now that I think about it, yeah, they're probably about even actually.
That's why it was a good question. That's why he asked. I'm sure. He was struggling with that himself. Pastor Marty. Hey, Pastor Marty, who do you think is hotter, AOC or Tulsi? Well, ask the pastor. You're worried over nothing with this censorship ruling. Kyle Kalinske said that Democrats are 100 quadrillion times better than Republicans. That's right. Crystal then dropped him off for a play date. Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. Thank you for the donation. That is very kind of you. All right, let's keep going. We got some more super chats that we will get to in a little while. Here, we'll take one more since this was came in a little while back. Old Dave, thanks for the $20, Old Dave. Love you guys. Thank you. This is one of the very few shows I can watch. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
All righty, let's take a look at another segment here. Okay, so this is somewhat of a big one, folks. There's been some turmoil at the Biden State Department since the Israel-Hamas war, which is what they're calling it. It's really the Israel-Gaza war, I would call it, since Israel's fighting back, not just against Hamas, but they are committing a genocide against Gaza. So I think it's more appropriately termed the Israel-Gaza war. But there's been some turmoil at the State Department because there's been a lot of dissent in the ranks, which is how you know Israel's response is really out of control, when these career foreign policy establishment goons are starting to make noise that the people of Gaza are not being looked after properly by the U.S. But here is a video that Uzra Zaya put out. She works at the Department of State. Here's her impassioned case for the United States' commitments to the civilians of Gaza.
Secretary Uzra Zaya, and I'm leading.
Sorry.
I'm Undersecretary Uzra Zaya, and I'm leading State Department efforts to surge vital humanitarian assistance to Palestinians in need. USAID Administrator Power and I just completed a call with donor governments from around the world, and we heard strong solidarity and support to address this unfolding humanitarian crisis. The United States message to Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, and all around the world is clear. We see you. We grieve with you.
We see
and we
you.
Mourn.
We see you. This is not a DEI meeting at the Nike executive boardroom here. We see you. We hear you. Lean in and know your value, people of Gaza.
We hold space for you.
We hold space for you. Yes, exactly. We hold space for you. To our message to the people of Gaza, we see you, we hear you. Mourn every innocent loss of life.
Every loss.
We are taking a special spa day for you.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Life. Like the entire world, we were outraged and saddened by the enormous loss of life at Al Ahli Arab Hospital in Gaza.
Safe and effective.
This is why the United States is working 24/7 to help ensure assistance urgently reaches those in dire need. As President Biden announced, the United States is providing $100 million in new humanitarian assistance for Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank.
$100 million. Oh, that's for 2 regions? That's not just for Gaza alone? $100 million for Gaza and the West Bank. How much aid is going to the Israel defense effort, which is killing all these people in Gaza? That's why you have to put this aid in the first place. $10 billion. $10 billion for Israel. $100 million for Gaza and the West Bank to split, not to mention the $61 billion that they're sneaking into this package for Ukraine. I'm starting to think this was the secret deal. Remember Matt Gaetz said Kevin McCarthy made a secret deal with the Democrats to get Ukraine funding through? I'm starting to think that secret deal is, well, we'll throw some in for Israel, and then they can't vote no, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I hear they also made
$100 million fucking dollars. $10 billion going to the country that's genociding them. They get $100 million. Can you believe this? I mean, can you believe this?
Well, they also negotiated a deal with Papa John. Pies are going to be $2.99.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
For the duration of the war within Gaza.
$100 million.
This will help meet urgent needs for clean water, food, hygiene support, medical care, shelter, and other essentials. We are engaging intensively with partners in the region to stress the importance of upholding the law of war.
What do you mean others in the region? To stress the importance of upholding the laws of war. Others in the region like who? Like the country that's breaking the laws of war? Your State Department already said a week and a half ago, they told Max Blumenthal, that was the clip that went viral, that any disputes will be behind closed doors. That if Israel makes any statements which suggest that they are or will be in violation of international law, we will bring those to their concern in private. Now, we know they're using white phosphorus already.
I was just going to say, can you imagine if any country that we were trying to gin up international antagonism towards did that, what they would be saying? The butcher of fill in the blank. You know, you could just Mad Lib these things now, you know. Oh, they used white phosphorus. The international community cannot idly stand by. Israel does it. Not a fucking word. They haven't said a word about it as far as I know.
No, they're not mentioning anything. And we will get into this later because a lot of the people at the Department of State have mentioned specifically that Biden and the higher-ups have not called out Israel specifically for specific violations of international law.
Those who are trying to get to safety or provide assistance and facilitating access to basic needs. As we work to ensure this assistance reaches the people in Gaza, we're also working with partners to prevent any diversion or theft by Hamas. Civilians are not to blame and should not suffer for Hamas's horrific terrorism.
You think?
My team and the entire department is working around the clock to ensure that humanitarian aid begins flowing into Gaza as soon as possible. Thank you.
Wow, that's reassuring if you're in Gaza. Literally 100 times the amount of money that's going to the people of Gaza for aid is going to the country that is genociding them. 100 times. 10 billion versus 100 million.
America, fuck yeah!
Yep.
Yeah, we're really standing up for them. I was just reading, you know, this is all coming in so fast. It's hard to even keep track of it. Apparently, some aid did get into Gaza, but they still don't have any power there. This is just a horrific humanitarian crisis that anyone who co-signs this is going to be judged, I don't think by distant history, but very soon. If you look at, I've never seen the government working hand in glove with the media lose control of the narrative this way so quickly. I just retweeted Ryan Grimm put out a video, thousands of people marching in LA. And you're talking about shit lib central here. It's fucking LA. Like, if there's any place where they're going to buy the party line, where they're just going to toe the line, it's going to be LA and New York, where we've also been having these enormous protests as well. It keeps reminding me of there was a Peter O'Toole movie that I love called The Ruling Class, where he's an English lord and these aristocrats ask him what he thinks about India. And he says, you can't kick the natives in the back streets of Calcutta anymore. That's what this keeps reminding me of. Like, you can't kick the natives in the back streets of Tel Aviv anymore. You just can't get away with this. The world is too wired. The evidence is too available. Social media is too prevalent. They just can't get away with what they used to get away with. And as a result, I mean, even the media, like, I'm lumping in the media with the government, but even the media has been platforming voices that they wouldn't normally platform. Like that Piers Morgan segment that we covered with Bassam, what's his name?
Yeah, Youssef, right? You're talking about the comic.
Yeah.
Bassam
I mean,
Youssef.
that if this had happened 10 years ago, that guy wouldn't have gotten anywhere near a studio. So you are hearing alternative points of view, and it's really quite incredible to me how much people are usually in political opposition to each other, like the left and the libs, seem to be mostly in agreement on this. The rabid Zionists that I hear, it's a very small minority. Most people recognize that this is an atrocity. So again, I mean, it redeems a lot of the social justice movements of the last 10 years, because this is the first solid evidence I've ever seen that it's actually done any good.
Yeah, and it certainly has. It certainly has. There certainly is some evidence of that right now. No doubt about that. All right, there's another part to this story, though. Folks, Josh Paul, State Department official, has resigned over arms transfer to Israel. Josh Paul spent more than 11 years as the director of congressional and public affairs at the Bureau that oversees arm transfers to foreign nations. The New York Times reports a State Department official in the Bureau that oversees arms transfers resigned this week in protest of the Biden administration's decision to continue sending weapons and ammunition to Israel as it lays siege to Gaza in its war with Hamas. In his resignation letter, Josh Paul, who has been the director of congressional and public affairs for the State Department's Bureau of Political Military Affairs for over 11 years, said the Biden administration's, quote, blind support for one side was leading to policy decisions that were, quote, short-sighted, destructive, unjust, and contradictory to the very values we publicly espouse. Good on this guy. The response Israel is taking, and with it, the American support, both for that response and for the status quo of the occupation, will only lead to more and deeper suffering for both Israeli and Palestinian people. That's a key point. It is not just support for the Israeli response. It is support for the status quo of the occupation. Because all the talk out of the government is that the Palestinian people deserve the right to self-determination. They deserve to live in peace and security, as if they were living in peace and security until October 7th, right? That's the level of propaganda that we're dealing with. So it's good that he called that out as well. He added, I fear we are repeating the same mistakes that we have made these past decades, and I decline to be part of it for longer. In an interview, Mr. Paul said that Israel's cutting off of water, food, medical care, and electricity to the Gaza Strip, a region of 2 million people, should prompt protections in a number of long-standing federal laws intended to keep American weapons out of the hands of human rights violators. But those legal guardrails are failing, he said. The problem with all of these provisions is that it rests on the executive branch making a determination that human rights violations have occurred, Mr. Paul said. Exactly. The decision to make a determination doesn't rest with some nonpartisan academic entity, and there's no incentive for the president to actually determine anything. I want to repeat that. There's no incentive for the president to actually determine anything. There's no incentive for Joe Biden to press Netanyahu on the hospital bombing. There's no incentive for Joe Biden to call out the white phosphorus. There's no incentive for him to do that. The United States sees no incentive to actually blow the whistle on war crimes.
Right.
There's nothing in it for them. Joe Biden's on record. Joe Biden said years ago when he was first elected to the Senate, if Israel didn't exist, we would have to invent it. Israel is our proxy in the region, which means there is a conflict of interest here, obviously. I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't know, but the average schmuck watching TV, watching Anthony Blinken at the podium, watching Joe Biden at the podium, they don't know this. There is no incentive for them to tell the truth about this, to call Israel out about this.
Right.
And that's why he is stepping down. Because it's not enough to say, well, we expect them to act in accordance with international law. If there's no incentive to call them out for violating international law, then you're not going to do it. And there's no one there to stop them from doing it. They're the executive branch. Certainly what? The fucking House Republicans are going to impeach him over this? No, they're all in Israel's pocket as well. There's no one home here. There's no one here to fix this. That's the real tragedy of this, is that there's no one around to make this right. Mr. Paul, whose resignation was reported earlier by HuffPost, said that he had seen the U.S. government approve numerous sales or shipments of material to other Middle Eastern countries, even when he believed federal law should have prevented them from going forward. On all of them, there's a moment where you can say, okay, well, you know, it's out of my hands, but I know Congress is going to push back, he said, by issuing a hold on the transfer of grilling officials in hearings at the Capitol. But in this instance, there isn't any significant pushback likely from Congress. That's what I just said. There isn't any other oversight mechanism. There isn't any other forum for debate. And that's part of what got into my decision making. Exactly. The only way for him to start a debate is to do this and try to get as much press out of it as possible. I'm surprised this got as much coverage as it did, to be honest with you. Continuing to give Israel what he described as carte blanche to kill a generation of enemies only to create a new one does not ultimately serve the United States interests, Mr. Paul said. Last slide on this story. What it leads to is this desire to sort of impose security at any cost, including in cost to the Palestinian civilian population, he said, and that doesn't ultimately lead to security. This administration, I think, knows better and understands some of the complexity, but brought very little of that nuance to the policy decisions that are being made. Since posting his resignation letter online Wednesday, Mr. Paul said he had received an outpouring of support from State Department colleagues and congressional staff members, so he's not alone. A lot of people are wrestling with this being the current policy and are finding it to be deeply problematic, he said. I've really been quite moved by some of the folks who have reached out to say that they understand where I'm coming from. They respect my decision. It's been very supportive. So I mentioned the HuffPost initially broke that he resigned, but the HuffPost has been on this for about a week now. So this came out a few days back. On thin ice, some Biden admin staffers feel stifled discussing horrors in Gaza. There's a lot to read here. We won't read all of it. But what this article essentially outlines is the hypocrisy of Joe Biden touting the diversity of his cabinet, the diversity of his decision-making teams, while allowing no ideological diversity at all when it comes to this issue. So this was an article detailing some of the rumblings at the Department of State. And then after this, the follow-up to that article was mutiny brewing inside State Department over Israel-Palestine policy. Morale is low, and some staffers are preparing to formally express their opposition to President Joe Biden's approach, officials told HuffPost. Obviously, this was when Josh Paul announced that he was quitting. Two officials told HuffPost that diplomats are preparing what's called a dissent cable, a document criticizing American policy that goes to the agency's leaders through a protected internal channel. Such cables are seen within the State Department as consequential statements of serious disagreement at key historical moments. The dissent channel was established amid deep internal conflict during the Vietnam War, and diplomats have since then used it to warn that the U.S. is making dangerous and self-defeating choices abroad. The cable would come in the wake of Josh Paul, the aforementioned Josh Paul, a veteran State Department official announcing his resignation on Wednesday. After more than a decade of working on arms deals, he said he could not morally support the U.S.'s moves to supply Israel's war effort. So Russell talks about, rightly so, how they're not able to control the narrative here. They're not even able to control the narrative within their own shop. As you see, everyone, it seems, but Blinken himself, whoever this fucking Uzra Zaya, whatever the hell her name was, who we just watched a few minutes back, the real higher-ups, the real top brass are all in lockstep. But they're having a hard time even controlling their underlings, because this is what happens when you commit the greatest massacre in a generation. This is what happens when you enable and fund and support a world historic human atrocity. Even your own house becomes unruly at that point. And that ought to tell us, look, it's great that these guys did this. It's great that Josh Paul did this, but that ought to tell you how severe this is, because these are lifers. These are lifers. Right. They would not be walking out unless they understood how dire this was, and unless they said, you know what, I'm never going to be able to sleep at night again if I don't get out of here, if I don't speak up and do something. And in this case, they left, and he got as much press as he could out of it. I hope he gets more press. That's why we felt a strong need to cover this evening. And I hope the word gets out that even the foreign policy stooges are starting to rebel. That's how atrocious what is happening actually is.
Right. And the extended HuffPost article about the resignation got into how your favorite faceless man behind the throne, Jake Sullivan,
right?
His brother works at the State Department, and it got into how nobody wants to voice opposition because they're afraid he's going to go back to his brother and rat them out if they voice any opposition to the policy. It was also interesting because they had some of what he put on LinkedIn. The guy who resigned, what's his name? Paul?
Josh Paul, yeah.
Josh Paul. And we, especially in our political lane, we're in opposition to people in these positions. A general rule of thumb that I have in life is that most people don't see themselves as villains. Even the most villainous people feel a need to justify their actions. They feel a need to see themselves as being on the side of the angels. And when you looked at his thought process, it was very humanizing in a way that I think a lot of people on the outside just, we don't see these people that way. But his description of how he saw his job was essentially harm reduction.
Right. That's
like his description was kind of that, yes, the United States does these absolutely horrible things. And my deal with myself was essentially, he said, am I doing more good than harm? By being there, am I preventing worse things from happening? So that was fascinating to me. His baseline was that our policies are horrible. And his job was to try to talk them out of giving weapons to murderous regimes with horrific human rights violations insofar as he could manage to do that. And his resignation, his logic for this resignation was that he had no avenue to make it better. So the deal he had made with himself, he would have to break it if he continued to work there, because he could not do any harm reduction in this situation. That was a very interesting insight into the fact that, look, what, you think these people at the State Department are walking around going, yeah.
Right.
They believe they're doing the right thing. And I'm sure there are a lot of people like him who recognize that American foreign policy is horrific and murderous and see themselves as trying to ameliorate that reality. Most of them just don't speak out like this.
Right. because most of them just go along to get along until it's too late, until they're at the top. And then once you're at the top, it requires a lot of courage. And, you know, this is where you get the real psychos at the top. That's why people who rise to the level of Antony Blinken are such psychopaths, because only the psychopaths can actually stick around long enough and eat enough shit to get to the top. Only the people who have no soul whatsoever, no morality whatsoever, get to the top. Now, of course, a thing like this doesn't happen every 2 years, right? So this is an extreme example. But if you look at what our foreign policy has been in the region, yeah, it's been atrocious. It's been absolutely atrocious. That's why Hillary Clinton gets to be Secretary of State, because Hillary Clinton would poison her grandmother for $1, right? John Kerry, same thing. Rex Tillerson, oil guy. You know, everybody who rises to that level is someone who's willing to do just about anything to rise to that level. The system filters out the people like Josh Paul. That's why Josh Paul will never be Secretary of State, because he doesn't stick around long enough to get there, because he has too much of a conscience up here. You know?
Well, that's it. I mean, when you have a country that is arguably the most violent warlike country in the history of the world, literally in the history of the world, how do you rise to the top without being a psychopath? You have to be okay with that. Unless they know that you're their creature, you're not going to get anywhere. This is why so often, and we talked about this with the Senate race in California, like why Barbara Lee isn't getting any support. It's the same reason that only psychopaths like Kamala Harris from diverse communities rise to that level. Because, you know, some people, I will actually say now, a lot of people with the Bernie Hillary thing, with the wrong intentions and not with good motives, but a lot of them said, well, Bernie can get away with saying this because he's a white man, but somebody of a different identity can't get away with that. You know what? There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. And that is why only people like Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris and Hakeem Jeffries, who are from those communities, rise to that level. Although when you're talking about the real power, even the old white man can't get into that position unless they are willing to go along to get along. Nobody who's really going to defy the system, whatever their identity, gets to have that job.
Get that far up, right?
Right. Nobody can.
Exactly. All right, folks. Let's move on here. We'll take some super chats here. Rumble rants are available. Jake's having an easy night because no Rumble rants yet. Oh, we're at 666 likes. So you want to hit that Iron Maiden again, Russell? Do some more headbanging.
Oh, snap.
We made it there. Thank you, Jake, for letting us know. Hey, why don't you guys over on Rumble put our producer friend to work here and throw us a couple Rumble rants here, just so that we didn't pass Jake here for nothing. Make them work a little bit. No, actually, Jake, thank you for being here. Jake had a power outage in his area, and they just turned it on just in time. And so he made everything happen to get on here. So thank you, Jake, of course. China Shill says Taiwan is not a country. All right, fuck it, whatever. Don't have time for this. Thank you. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for that.
I swear to God. I could come on and be like, you know, I want to suck off Mao's corpse and then say, but I don't believe in censorship, and they'd go, God damn it, you hate China. You know, like it doesn't matter. Like the mildest criticism. Like, don't you think that's ridiculous? Like to say, hey man, I don't think we should interfere with that country. I don't think that's any of our business. I've even gone on and said, I think it would be a more peaceful world if China were in charge. Like, what else do you want? What? It's Shangri-La over there. I mean, stop it.
So you said, okay. So here's the here's what I would say. You know, when you say God damn, so you see how I choked the scream. You say, God damn it. See? I choked that. Yeah. You use your neck. Use that neck. Yeah. That's what you do.
You know, I was watching a segment the other day, and I saw that my voice went up and down, and I thought about that. I said, you know what? You know why I do that? It's theatrical. I come out of theater.
I know. When you come from theater, you have to use your dynamics. Yes.
Exactly. That's what I'm used to. Like, you want to get it.
You have to do the opposite.
Right. You're in front of an audience. You want to give a lot of vocal range, or their ear gets bored.
Right, exactly. No, that's exactly right. When you're on stage, you have to use the dynamic contrast. When you're here, you have to do the exact opposite.
The exact opposite. It's a totally different way of thinking.
You know, you really hit it hard with your Crazy Eddie impression, because I was listening in the car.
Well,
like,
didn't I lean back, though?
Usually
when I'm going to do a bit like that, I try to lean back from the mic.
Oh, by the way, folks, I mean, I don't know. Most people who watch live don't listen to the podcast version, but there was some kind of audio problem. I don't know if it's the speaker in my car, because I was just testing it out, because I heard a little bit heavy bass on the audio podcast today when I put it on. And so if there was an audio problem with the podcast that I released, because we released Friday's episode on the audio show this morning. So I don't know. If anybody has any feedback, I would love to know if it works okay on your guys' end, because on my phone, it played fine, but then I tested it out in the car, and the bass was just out of control. So I have no idea why that would be. I mastered it the exact same way I master every one. But if you had an issue, let me know. Pastor Marty, thanks for the $5. Killers of the Flower Moon was great. Oh, good to know. Yeah, it looks good.
Okay.
It looks definitely good.
All right.
Cool Blue, thanks for the $4.99. Russell, given the trajectory for the motion picture industry, will the Oscars still be magical?
I mean, only if Jada is inciting violence.
That's right.
They have to bring her every time. I mean, the magic is already gone. Like, who really gives a shit about it anymore?
Right.
Like it ticked up. The viewership ticked up a little bit, I think, on the last one, but nothing like its glory days. It's not the event that it used to be.
No, of course not. Of course not. Bonzo Beans getting us kicked off in Rumble. No Rumble rants. Well, thank you for helping us solve that problem. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, the Super Chats and the Rumble rants do help a great deal. We are going to do our Q&A over on Rumble in a little while. So everybody on YouTube, get ready to switch over in about, probably got about an hour or so left here. Still got a whole lot of show to go. So don't go nowhere. Russell, given the trajectory. Oh, sorry. Hit that one already. Cool Blue. Thanks for the donation. Aaron Costello, thanks for the $1.99. Russell, did your shelves finally collapse? No, he fixed them. Maybe
I fixed them because it was pretty clear that they were going to. And I didn't actually want that to happen. I have a lot of little souvenirs and mementos that I don't want to get totally destroyed.
Yeah. Okay, Dan Richmond. Okay, this is something that I have to... Okay, I will say something to Dan. Hey, Russell, I shared the subscriber-only link the day after the stream, queued up to one of your monologues. Keaton yelled at me on Twitter. I didn't yell. I just asked you if you could not share the link and hurt my feelings. I'd like to speak to the manager. Okay, so here's the thing. If we do a subscriber-only show, we like to keep that subscriber-only, not just... It's not like a proprietary, we don't want people listening for free to the paycheck. It's that... And Russell will tell you this. We say things about, say, our personal lives that we would not say on the main channel because
it's the club gig.
Yeah, there's maybe a friend like we'll tell a story about someone we know, and maybe we don't want them to know that we said it about them. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want it out there in the public. You know what I mean? That's why. So it's not about like, oh, we don't want anybody, pirating our shit. And I can't keep track of everything I say every episode. So like, there's stories that Russell has told where you've said, I wouldn't tell this story on the main show because you don't necessarily want it out there. So that's all. That's the only reason that I asked you to not share the link. But I appreciate the plug. But so thank you. So there you go. You have spoken to the manager, Dan. Like, I can't remember a specific story, but I know we've for sure told stories about like colleagues,
absolutely. Yeah, like bosses.
Right. And we don't name them by name, but still, it's like if a person heard, hey, what the, who needs that? Right. Yeah, bosses, exactly. Eric Rousseau, thanks for the $2. Who gives the best warhead in Congress? That's a good question. I don't know.
These days, I don't know. Feinstein's dead now.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't know who it would be. Richie Rosenkrantz. By the way, Richie Rosenkrantz was my original co-host for this show back when we started this as an audio show. Thanks, Richie. As to Russell being loud, good job going at Matt out with Jose. Oh, thank you, Richie. Saw it on Ahmed Eldon Instagram. Yeah, you know where that actually took off? And thanks for the donation and the sentiment, Richie. That actually got a lot of views on TikTok. We're actually challenging Marianne for the TikTok throne. That got a lot of people clipped that for TikTok, which should have occurred to us. Like, it's obvious that would have been big on TikTok.
Did you put it on TikTok?
I did. I put it up. Yeah. But yeah, it should have been obvious. Oh yeah, obviously TikTok is the right venue for this. It didn't even occur to us to do it.
Yeah, somebody mentioned it, so I went and looked, and all these people had shared it on TikTok.
Right. Yeah, no, it really got a lot of views there. 1-2 Libre, thank you for the $5 over on Rumble. The vibrato of emotion in that State Department drone's voice was the single most revolting thing about that video. Yeah, no, that's why I said, like, she just like it's a corporate fucking human resources diversity meeting. Like, we see you, we hear you, we grieve with you. You know, just so sterile. Just absolutely sick. But that's what we said. The Josh Pauls, the people with a conscience, they leave. They don't get to speak in front of the camera. The people who get high enough to make those videos, they're the people who are okay with this, and that's why they got the gig.
Well, when you work and live in these very inhuman institutions and environments, the only way to survive that is to replace your natural human behavior and reactions with an artificial simulation of those behaviors. That's what I find when I've worked in offices. Like, everyone winds up turning into a robot. Everyone ends up turning into a drone, right? So all you can do, I mean, it really creeped me out when I would work in these office environments, because everyone just behaves in such a fake way, because that's the only way you can survive that environment. Hey, smooth sailing? God, it's like fucking lizard people, man.
Yeah. Let's go to another Rumble rant here. T-Bone 316. Hello, Dissidents Boys from the Northwest. Big fan. Keaton Miko Paulette is waiting for you to reach out and request an interview. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, if you don't know who he is. No, I did. I looked into it. I had not heard of him, but I did look into him after the last show, because people recommended that we did, and I'm glad I did. He'd be great on this show. Yeah, you know, God damn it, I meant to email Norm Finkelstein back, because I emailed him back. I emailed him the other day, and he said he might be able to come on soon. He wanted me to follow up with him today, so I'll do that as soon as we leave here. I'll email him back. But folks, if we are looking to have Norm Finkelstein on soon, and if we do, we are going to split the stream and do most of that interview as a Rumble exclusive, because if we're going to talk to Norm, I really want to give him the chance to say what he needs to say, because even on the pasta interview, he stopped short a few times, and I figure if we're going to have Norm on to talk about this topic, that's got to be a Rumble exclusive. We got to yeah, because that will be epic. I mean, Norm uncensored on this topic, that'll be one of the most epic shows ever, which is why you all need to sign up to the Substack, because when you sign up to the Substack, we let you know when and where we're going to be live. So if we get Finkelstein on for an uncensored interview about this topic, we're going to announce on Substack where it'll be. All right. So instead of showing up to YouTube and saying, where is it? You'll know where it is. So it's free to join the Substack. Please join the Substack. It's free. Even if you can't be a paid member, that helps you stay in touch with us and helps you know when and where we are going to be live.
And also, we're going to start dropping articles again. And by request, I've been asked to do the reading list from these books that have been recommended. So I'm going to drop that on Substack. So if you sign up, you will get that.
Yeah. Yep. That'll be another cool addition to the Substack. Palasier says, when? I'm going to email him back. I meant to do it today. I was working on a documentary all day today, and Russell knows now that you just got into video editing. When you start editing for a long clip, time just flies right by. You look up and you've been on the computer for
hours and hours and hours to get that.
It feels like 45 minutes.
Right.
Right. And it feels like 45 minutes. The time just goes so fast.
Yeah.
So that'll be maybe even Wednesday. That's why I said join the Substack. It's free. Join the Substack. We may even be able to book Norm Finkelstein for this Wednesday. So yes, make sure you sign up. All righty. Let's take a couple more of these since we got some coming in, and then we will get to the rest of our segments here. Nazis showed at our Palestinian rally in Montana on October 21st. Wow. Yeah. Well, this is
whose side were they on?
Yeah. Well, this is what I mean. Isn't it insane how you have a lot of the, now the good liberal now supports Israel and Ukrainian Nazis. Like, if to be a liberal in good standing now, you have to be indifferent to Ukrainian Nazis, but you have to be supportive of the Jewish state. That's the cognitive dissonance that's at work right now.
Well, it's like we always say, our diversity is our strength.
Right, that's one way to put it. One way to put it. Yeah, Pastor Marty, war is Biden's reelection plan. Nothing else to run on. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. Okay, let's get to the rest of our segments here. Okay, this is beautiful comic relief. We need some comic relief after that State Department segment, do we not? Well, it doesn't get better comic relief than this. Some developments from the Cenk Uygur presidential campaign. So
that's
we have
always
an article,
good for a laugh.
Exactly. And I think we need it. I think we could all use a pick-me-up, right? We have an article and a video. Let's go to the article first, since this is probably the funniest. Progressive pundit Cenk Uygur won't appear on Nevada primary ballot after altering... Sorry, our logo is in the way of that. Let's get the hell out of my way. After altering form. So, Cenk Uygur wants to challenge mainstream constitutional interpretations that he is ineligible for the presidency because he was born in Turkey. This is from the Nevada Independent. Progressive political commentator Cenk Uygur, a naturalized U.S. citizen born in Turkey, attempted to file for Nevada's Democratic presidential primary using an altered form that crossed out the words, natural born before citizen, a change that caused state officials to reject his application. Uygur, who immigrated from Turkey to the U.S. in 1978, has said he believes the Constitution's requirements to qualify for the presidency, that a person be a natural-born citizen, would not disqualify him from running. He said he believed the case would end up being decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. That differs from typical legal interpretations of the clause, which have described it as meaning someone who was a U.S. citizen at birth without needing to go through a naturalization process. Of course, we literally learned this in like the second grade. Like, this is as basic as it gets. Uygur filed to run on October 11th, but on his declaration of candidacy, crossed out references to the Constitution. This is like what Eric Cartman would do. Like, literally, this is what Eric Cartman would do. Crossed out references to the Constitution's qualification for the presidency clause and replaced natural-born citizen with a handwritten naturalized citizen. State election officials rejected the application, citing state law that requires candidates to file declaration of candidacy. Though state officials informed Uygur's campaign of the improper filing the following day, Uygur did not submit his candidacy forms again prior to the close of the presidential primary filing period on Monday, October 16th. So once he was informed that there was an error, he didn't even bother to rectify it. He apparently just took the L.
What I want you to explain is the logic behind what you're doing.
Yeah, indeed. Pretty amazing. Now, this guy claims to have roped 1,000 people into donating to his campaign.
Yes.
So you're soliciting donations to a campaign, and this is the buffoonery that you are engaging in, crossing out words on a form and replacing them with your own edit as you submit them to gain ballot access in Nevada. I mean, it's just such an overt scam. Like, how do you present yourself seriously when you're running such a blatant scam? Is it that big a deal that your book bombed? I mean, people write books. Sometimes a book does well, sometimes it doesn't. It's not the end of the world. You're still a wealthy guy. Do you have to go to this length to recoup some of those expenses? I mean, this is just debasing.
All right, so yeah, I have a few theories about this. So, if any of you saw, I did a little mashup to "They Might Be Giants," Istanbul's Not Constantinople. Check it out on our Twitter. I was very proud of that one. And I put forth the premise in that clip that he did this because his book completely bombed. Like on Amazon, it's rated over 18,500 and something ranking in political books. Like bombed. Like 6 people bought this book. On Barnes and Noble, it's somewhere around 5,700, I think, in the rankings for political books. Like, to be there, nobody bought this. Now, what that indicates to me also, I don't keep a close eye on their channel or any eye on their channel. I don't know. It seems to me they've probably had a collapse in audience, because once they took the positions they took on the mayor's race in LA, Anna talking about crime and homelessness and the take she had on that, and then with the trans issues and with Benny quitting and all of this, because their audience was very much that Majority Report audience, and the Majority Report audience is not about that life, right? They're not about those kinds of positions. And people like us stopped watching them years ago. So because this just smells like desperation to me. Like, I don't think, not at first I thought it was just the book, but now that I see this, I say maybe this is more than just the book. Maybe the whole channel is collapsing. And look, I'm gonna make a little prediction here. Not 100% prediction, but I'm going to give it better than even odds that whatever the hell's happening internally there is so toxic, and that the experience of this batshit crazy attempt for attention or whatever the hell he's doing here is so embarrassing to her that Anna winds up striking out on her own.
Yeah, I mean, that would not surprise me, because she definitely did not look impressed by his announcement. She looks quite offended, as I would be if I were in her position, to have to actually do that segment with him where she has to like pretend to interview him about his presidential campaign, especially when you're doing shit like this. It's just so embarrassing. And I just have to also say, I mean, I've made this point before, like, and this is not unique to Cenk, obviously, Majority Report, Pacman, Kyle, even Crystal to a slightly lesser extent, but still at the end of the day, obviously this would apply to her. Why are you desperate for a Democrat to win in 2024? Like, why? Like, are you a serious person if you think it's really important that either Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer be elected president? Like, look at the state of the world right now. How can you even make the argument that the Democrats are the lesser evil party at this point? Like, to me, that's just an unserious position to take. So the whole premise is just perverse and sick. Look at the segment we just did. We just talked about the State Department is in chaos now. It's in turmoil. That's how vile the administration's position is on the massacre of 1 million people. You're still going to tell me what? You're still going to start pitching me on the fucking NLRB board, the NLRB appointments? I mean, it's just so ludicrous. And speaking of ludicrous, Cenk apparently buried the hatchet with Kyle Kulinski because they were mad at each other, because I guess Cenk didn't think Kyle defended him when the whole Jimmy rift happened. Yeah, but I guess they're back on good terms, or maybe this is how desperate Cenk is to get donations to his campaign, that he went on the Kyle and Crystal show to answer some questions about his candidacy. Here's Kyle asking him if he'll be taking corporate PAC money. Here we go.
Will you accept big money donations? Will you accept corporate PAC money, super PAC money, etc.?
Yeah. So, guys, super PACs, corporate PAC money is the worst thing in the world. And so the first political organization I ever started was Wolfpack. And so now that leads to an interesting point. So Wolfpack is meant to get money out of politics, fights for a constitutional amendment to make sure that we end private financing of elections. So, but at the same time, Wolfpack's a super PAC. So is that some sort of irony? Well, yeah, it's an irony. Does that mean it's hypocrisy? No.
No, of course not.
In my ideal world, the PAC that I started
I think it's time for you to start to seriously consider salads.
No, that's not.
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah. Let's see how he rationalizes this. Go ahead.
What we're going to do is put a super PAC in a giganto machine and make it the biggest super PAC ever. And then it can beat up all the other super PACs, and then we can get rid of super PACs. It's just that's what I'm saying.
That's pretty
like,
much the case he makes.
It is the case he makes. But that's why now I'm starting to say. At first, I thought it was just a book scam. Now I'm starting to say, all right, this is a desperation play. I think their numbers at the Young Turks are not good. I think they. Can you imagine how many patrons they lost when they took that transposition?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean,
between
total
that
collapse.
And the Rick Caruso thing and everything. Yeah. A lot of that. But no, he goes on to make essentially the point that Russell just summarized.
PAC, Rebellion PAC, even Justice Democrats get so strong, so powerful, and this is actually the plan, and it was the plan from a dozen years ago when I started Wolfpack, that we use the Achilles heel of the system against.
Listen to this.
That they raise so much money and defeat everyone who's against money in politics to the point where the politicians throw up their hands and go, we got to end super PACs just so we can end Wolfpack, just so we can end Rebellion PAC.
Okay, so he literally said the plan was for Wolfpack and Rebellion PAC to get so big that Congress would vote to outlaw super PACs just to squash Wolfpack. He said just a moment ago that was the plan 12 years ago. Okay, well, I hate to bring this up, but if that was the plan 12 years ago and it hadn't worked by now, which it obviously hasn't worked by now, maybe it wasn't such a great plan. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, if your theory of the case were correct, wouldn't it have worked by now?
Yeah.
Obviously,
and
it doesn't.
Where's that money going to come from? Because, billionaires like them, their influence. And also, look, I could be wrong about the nuances of this, but my understanding is this is a Supreme Court problem. That the Supreme Court has established precedents that don't allow Congress to even get rid of these PACs if they wanted to. I could be wrong about that, but that's the impression I have.
Yeah, I don't know, because that gets, I think, a little technical, because I think what Citizens United essentially rules is that there's no limit to donations to these super PACs by individuals because money is speech, according to that ruling.
Right.
As far as the existence of super PACs themselves, that might be subject to some legal reform. It may not be, I'm not sure, but that's obviously not going to happen. If that were going to happen, it would have happened by now. I will consider starting a super PAC for Cenk. We'll call it, I don't know, Sucker PAC or Mark PAC, Rube PAC, Patsy PAC, people who apparently don't mind being swindled in broad daylight by such
bend
an
over
obvious...
PAC.
Yeah, bend over PAC. Yeah, bend over PAC. Such an obvious con artist. Here we go. He goes on.
We got so that they can get our money out of politics.
Right.
So you could say, well, that's unrealistic. You could say, I don't like that pathway.
It is unrealistic.
Can we?
We can, and we will.
God bless your hearts. I love you.
Thank
Try
you.
any way you can to defeat the system. That's my way of defeating the system. So if I was at the DNC, would I have voted for the proposal that they had recently to ban super PACs from Democratic primaries? Absolutely. But they didn't pass that proposal. So now I'm not going to do unilateral disarmament and go, okay, Joe Biden and everybody else and their uncle gets to have giant super PACs.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a Democrat.
Super PACs
Yeah.
come in on my side.
Absolutely.
By the way,
That
it's
sounds
not
like a
enormous.
typical Democrat
But I'm
justification.
being honest and I'm being principled. And I'm telling you, yes, I would allow the super PACs. And if I win,
I'm not bringing a
Then I'll
knife
get rid
to
of
a
them.
gunfight. Blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah.
That was the, I believe, was it Elizabeth Warren who said that? I mean, they all say that. Yeah, we're going to take the super PAC money now, and then when we win, we'll get rid of them.
Yeah.
Except Joe Biden didn't make that promise. But no, he's also, apparently, he's not running on Medicare for all either. He's running on a public option. He said that in this interview too.
Are you fucking kidding
No,
me?
I'm not kidding. He said a public option is more popular, and so I'm running on things that I can give to the people right away. And so he's not even running on Medicare for all. He's running on a public option. I mean, he's not running. He's not on the ballot. It's a complete joke. It's a complete joke. But I mean, these are very serious times. You got Kyle and Crystal asking him, are you for Medicare for all? Are you for, I mean, come on. It's just what a screw job that is. What an absolute screw job that is. And now he's saying, well, I'm taking super PAC money. For who's donating to your PACs? Who are these people out there who are going to donate to anything having to do with your campaign? I mean, this is worse than the Marianne. I mean, the Marianne thing was a grift. Obviously, we know that. Her staffers have said she's selling books. At least she got in early enough where it was plausible that she was making a run. This guy at the last second, after his book comes out and tanks, oh, yeah, I'm actually running for president because it's an emergency.
Right.
Even though I can't serve.
And he can't legally run.
Yeah,
even.
right, exactly.
He can't even get on the fucking ballot.
Right.
Which apparently Marianne is on the ballot there. That's one thing that article mentioned.
Nevada? She's on the ballot in Nevada.
It said she's on the ballot in Nevada. Thank God.
Beautiful.
Thank God we have Marianne to stand up for us.
First of all, why are Kyle and Crystal giving a softball interview to Marianne's chief rival for a distant second place in the Democratic primary? That seems like kind of a betrayal.
It almost seems like they think this is a joke and no real threat to their guru.
Yeah, that could be an explanation for sure. All right, let's take some more super chats here. We got 2 more segments to do before we break for our Q&A. The U.S., thanks for the $6.66, Will S. The U.S. blind eye toward this cleansing is in part because LBJ turned a blind eye when the USS Liberty was knowingly attacked by allies in 1967. Well, look, this is what Josh Paul said. He said, they will come out and they will make statements like we expect the Israeli response to be in accordance with international law, and we will look into it if it doesn't happen, but there is no incentive for them to actually follow through on that, and there's no one to hold them in check for it. There's no one to actually blow the whistle on it except us. That's why the protests have been so vital. And, they haven't worked yet, obviously, but it is apparent that they have lost the narrative very early on. And they're going to stay desperate to hang on to it for as long as they can, which is why the censorship is going to continue to be very brutal in this first, few months. Same thing with the pandemic, right? There were certain things you were absolutely not allowed to say when the pandemic first hit. And then after 6 months or a year, when evidence emerged to legitimize some of the claims that were deemed, unsayable, they had to ease up and let people talk about them because they were part of the discourse. Well, it's the same thing here. This first blitz of censorship is going to be extreme because they're still kidding themselves into thinking, no, we can keep a lid on this. But that won't last long. And so, that's why, we all need to be vocal about this. There's a protest on November 4th in Washington, D.C. Answer Coalition is putting that on. I want to do a segment on Wednesday. There's the Palestine Action Twitter account that's clearly being throttled. Like, I followed that account
I keep seeing tweets about that. Yeah?
I followed it 3 times today.
So it happened. It happened to you.
Later, I go
because sometimes when you see these things, you're not sure if it's just people talking out of their ass. So that's for real.
Huh? I tested it. I followed the account, and then I went back like a half hour later. I typed in the account handle, and sure enough, the option was there for me to follow again. It had unfollowed me. So look, I mean, obviously, we have a platform. We're very blessed to be able to communicate to, people here. But to the extent you guys all have a platform, whether it's online or in person, I mean, the best way to do this is to find a rally, find a protest near you, and get out there.
And hey, listen, I'm gonna preface this by saying safe, effective, and within the bounds of the law.
Of course.
But as me and Jose said about our action, we need more people doing something like that. We need more people doing things like that. Hey, look where there's somebody speaking near you who needs to be challenged, who's never going to be challenged on a corporate media platform, and within the bounds of the law and your First Amendment rights, ask some questions.
Yep, absolutely. And it is totally within the bounds of the law. Jose walks the streets a free man after having done a few dozen of these right now. It is not against the law. It is totally within your rights, and absolutely take advantage. That's why you have a First Amendment, right? Virtuoso, thanks for the $4.99. Biden can diversify the hegemony all he wants, but murder is murder, indeed. Good one. Thank you. Worst Kill, thanks for the $2. DD is the best politics show. Change my minds. Well, we don't want to change your minds. Maybe
I mean,
go argue.
You're asking the wrong people. Yeah.
Stephen Crowder, that's his thing. Change my mind, right? 007 Angelo, thank you. $3.8 billion to Israel. APAC buys DC. Money laundering. I thought it was $10 billion. I thought that's what he's asking for. 10 to Israel, 61 to Ukraine. That's the number.
The fate of the nation and possibly the world rests on those crazy Freedom Caucus bastards.
And even they might not be able to do anything because they may get circumvented by the Democrats. At this point, I'd say it's better than 50-50. They will.
Right.
Because now this second fight is on the line, right?
Right.
What, Hakeem Jeffries is going to let Israel go without $10 billion? Yeah. Yeah, right.
No, obviously not.
You know, they'll do whatever. Yassine Miller, thanks for the $5. Appreciate that. In the car, listening on Friday, Russell's voice dropped down a bit at times. Okay, yeah, that was the live thing in the car. I'm talking about the audio podcast because we mastered them for the audio podcast. But thank you for that. Yeah.
Grazie.
Thank you for that.
I mean, I'm hearing from most people in the chat that my voice is fine.
Good.
Today.
Good.
So somebody said yours was low, but
mine always, because I have it on automatic. Which I could probably don't need to put mine on automatic because I speak at a fairly constant volume.
You're a fucking phenom, man. I don't know how you do it.
All right, here.
You're a natural kid.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take it off automatic. I'm going to put it at a set volume and see if this is any better. All right, now I'm off automatic. Let me know if this sounds better. And Jake, let me know how this sounds. Okay, beautiful. All righty. Let's go on to a couple more of these. We're getting a lot of these. Thank you very much for your generosity tonight, folks. John Freeze, $9.99. We need Bricks TV. Yeah, that'd be something. Thank you for that. Appreciate the donation. George Gunnell, thanks for the $2. Your favorite gratuitously violent film of all time. Wow, that's a tough one.
Wow. Okay. You see, gratuitous is in the eye of the beholder. You know what I mean? Like, probably my favorite extremely gory film of all time would be George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, 1978. But I wouldn't call it gratuitous because I think it served the story.
Right. Mine that comes to mind immediately, which is definitely gratuitous, which is kind of the point, is Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer from 2001, Japanese horror film. That is one bloody film. And I don't even know if that's a horror film, though. I mean, I guess it kind of is. He's a horror director. But yeah, that is over the top for its own sake. But he's a great filmmaker. He did Audition, and it's very well done.
I saw Ichi the Killer. Yeah, it's good.
It's good. And that's what I would say that is definitely gratuitous violence.
Yeah.
A lot of
I can't. Because I think if I like it, I wouldn't consider it gratuitous. I mean, I'm a lifelong horror film fan. So I'm thinking like, well, obviously. The Blood-Sucking Freaks. That would be.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Blood-Sucking Freaks would be my favorite gratuitously violent film.
Interesting. All right, let's go on to
Submit to the will of Sadu.
segment. All right, I'm going to put this one on the screen. Dave is a frequent donor, but this is quite the thing to share with all of us here. I won't even read this aloud. I'll let everybody else read this because that is just quite the thing to just share on a super chat message of a show. But whatever floats your boat. Thank you for the donation. That is quite something.
You know what, David? You've done something that's very difficult. You left me speechless with that
left me speechless. I have no answer. No comment.
What do I even say to that? I got nothing, man. I got nothing.
Nothing you can say to that.
Was this one of those like on a cracker deals?
Yeah, right. Exactly. What do you say to that? Okay, we have another hopeless candidate development here for 2024. Folks, you may have seen this. This was quite the point of discussion on Twitter for the past few days in our space here. Cornell West defends accepting campaign cash from right-wing billionaire Harlan Crow. So Harlan Crow is a GOP megadonor who was recently in the news for having essentially bribed Clarence Thomas with swanky vacations and trips and perks. Apparently, he maxed out a donation to the Cornell West campaign. So this is from Common Dreams. Independent U.S. presidential candidate and progressive scholar Cornell West on Thursday responded to criticism he is facing for taking money from billionaire GOP megadonor Harlan Crow, known for lavishing right-wing U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas with gifts. After reviewing FEC filings, NBC News on Wednesday reported on Crow's August donation of $3,300, the maximum that an individual can directly give to a campaign. Now, note that this donation came in while Cornell was running as a Green. He has since obviously switched to independent. Cornell gave a very indignant response here. As an independent candidate and a free black man, I accept donations within the limits of no PACs or corporate interest groups that have strings attached. I am unbought and unbossed. Despite my deep political differences with brother Harlan Crow, who is an anti-Trump Republican, we'll get to that in a few moments, I've known him in a non-political setting for some years, and I pray for his precious family. I find it hypocritical for those who highlight his $3,300 donation to my campaign, but can't say a mumbling word about the PAC-driven $1 billion to support the genocidal attack in Gaza sponsored by their candidate. I'm fighting for truth, justice, and love. Onward.
Okay. Let me just quickly interject here. If there was ever a fucking straw man argument, really, are the people criticizing you for that the same people who are not saying anything about the PAC-driven billions of dollars going to other candidates?
Well, he's
are those really the same people?
I mean, in some cases they are, like in NBC News' case, right? But most of this opposition is coming from people who would be in your base. Just a note, by the way, latest round of polling had Cornell at 3 points, down from 9 a week ago. So you see, this is hurting him. Like this kind of disorganized shit and this kind of bullshit is definitely hurting him. It will. This inspires no confidence in a campaign.
Right.
So obviously,
well, that's what he wanted.
Most of this criticism is coming from the left, from the actual left, not the NBC left. Sure, they're going to take an opportunity to take you down a peg if it helps Joe Biden, but that's not where you're getting a lot of the pushback. It's very clear that his polling has taken a hit since he switched to independent, because who's going to invest in this at this point? He just voluntarily removed himself from 17 state ballots by switching from Green to independent, including the 2 biggest population states in the country. The Greens already had ballot access in California and Texas. They already had it. That was done.
Right.
Now, if he wants to be on the ballot in those 2 states, he needs a combined 332,000 signatures to get ballot access in those 2 states, which really means 500,000, because you have to beat the threshold by a lot, since a lot of signatures get challenged in court and thrown out. So this is clearly not working. Now, on this point about Harlan Crow being an anti-Trump Republican, that's really interesting, because he uses that to kind of soften who Harlan Crow actually is. Harlan Crow is actually worse than a MAGA Republican. He's a Karl Rove, George Bush Republican, the real fascist Republican, not the cartoon fascist Donald Trump Republican. But let's keep reading, because obviously Cornell ended up giving in fairly quickly. Cornell West returns donation from Harlan Crow, no less indignant, though. How sad that perception so quickly triumph over truth in our decadent culture.
Oh, boy. This one, I missed this one. I didn't see this one.
Yeah. No, this is the follow-up.
So you're going to get my live reaction on this.
Oh, okay. You didn't see this tweet? All right.
I mean, already, man, that is such a fucking slimy line of bullshit to try to turn it into a cultural critique.
A cultural critique.
You're the victim. I mean, that is such a misuse of the intellectual respect that people have for you.
Yeah. This holds in our major catastrophe in the Middle East, where the rich humanity of Palestinians is rendered invisible.
You're like the Palestinians.
Yeah, you're just like them.
You're just like them.
It also holds at home in the minor scandal about Harlan Crow's donation to my campaign. He is a staunch anti-Trump Republican. Again, why are you listing that as if it's a good thing? Like, we're supposed to be impressed by that? We'll show you who he is, exactly who he is, in just a moment. He is a staunch anti-Trump Republican who has never forget collections of tyrants. Don't forget, this guy has like a collection of Hitler memorabilia that broke when Clarence Thomas, that whole scandal broke.
Yeah.
He has never forget collections of tyrants: Stalin, Mao, Hitler, and many others. Can't talk like that around this channel with that Mao shit. Get cross people. And patriotic collections of Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln. Does this disqualify him from contributing to my campaign? Most people holler yes. I say no. As a jazz man.
Oh, motherfucker with the fucking... Listen, I am vindicated. I am vindicated. I said this from very early on, and then I kind of laid back. I don't want to fucking piss people off, man. I said from the beginning, this is an act. This is a bunch of fucking bullshit, man. It's shtick. It's shtick. It smelled like shtick.
Yeah.
It smelled like shtick to me. I said it early on, but then I stopped because he was running green and I didn't want to fucking undermine it. But yeah, man, it sounded like a line of horse shit to me. Right?
Yeah.
When somebody keeps falling back on these same lines and these same, I wanted to chalk it up to, well, it's hard to keep doing these interviews and be original every time, so you wind up falling into a pattern. I tried to chalk it up to that, but the more I see, the more I'm like, this is just a straight hustle, man. Come on.
Well, here we have it. So, as a jazz man, I listened and decided to give the money back to Brother Harlan, but still state the truth. Okay.
Get the fuck out of here.
Now, this is a piece by a think tank, which is this is a shit lib think tank here, but Harlan Crow's deep, dark money connections. When the Clarence Thomas scandal broke, Crew, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Government, did a little digging into Harlan Crow's past as a political influencer. Harlan Crow is more than Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's secret patron. He's also deeply intertwined with the shadowy world of Republican dark money. In fact, Crow personally took part in the creation of the post-Citizens United dark money system and secretly helped bankroll some of the new groups. Crow's political spending started long before the Citizens United opened the floodgates for anonymous money in American elections in 2010. Between 1977 and 2009, Crow and his companies gave more than $2.4 million to federal candidates, parties, PACs, and other political entities. Since Citizens United, he spent $13.8 million on federal politics, bringing his lifetime total spending reported to the FEC to more than $16 million. But that's not all he did. One of Crow's first forays into large donations was by providing some of the initial financing of Swiftboat Veterans for Truth. Not all of our audience is old enough to remember, but most of you are. An organization that spent millions running attack ads in 2004 against Democratic presidential candidate John Kerry, and was later fined nearly $300,000 by the FEC for failing to register as a political committee. Later in 2009, Crow and his company spent more than $5 million on a failed ballot initiative in Dallas trying to block the city from a city-owned convention center hotel, which would have competed with Crow's hotel. Immediately after Citizens United, Crow took part in one of the first key events leading to the creation of the dark money system. As recounted by Kenneth Vogel in his book Big Money, and separately by the Wall Street Journal, just weeks after the Supreme Court's decision in January 2010, 4 leading Republican political figures set out to obtain the seed funding they needed to launch several post-Citizens United groups. The 4 Republicans, consultant and former Bush White House aide Karl Rove, former RNC chairman Ed Gillespie, fundraiser Fred Malek, and former Senator Norm Coleman laid out their blueprint for a sort of shadow party to about 20 Republican plutocrats at the Dallas Petroleum Club in February 2010. They wanted funding for a network of what became some of the biggest players in outside political spending, including new super PAC American Crossroads, which Rove explained would work to defeat then President Obama and win Republican control of Congress. So he is a Karl Rove acolyte, Bush-era Republican. That Swift Boat Veterans for Truth campaign was a campaign to paint John Kerry as a traitor for basically disavowing the Vietnam War. Now, far from me to defend the character and integrity of John Kerry, but if you were involved in that campaign in 2004, you were doing so in order to reelect George W. Bush. If you were involved in George W. Bush's reelection campaign in 2004, you have absolutely zero business in any left political movement. You ought to be persona non grata. The fact that this guy is more toxic to Cornell West, is less toxic to Cornell West, pardon me, than Jimmy Dore is very, very telling. He stresses Harlan Crow, anti-Trump Republican. He's pro-Bush Republican. He's a neocon Republican. He's a bloodthirsty, warmongering, big business, chamber of commerce, blood-sucking Republican. And look at how he rushed to his defense. My brother Harlan Crow, I disagree with him, but God bless his precious family. This guy went out of his way, something I've never seen a politician do in my life. I've never seen a politician go out of their way to end an interview on a bad note. When he did the Jimmy Dore interview, literally went out of his way to end on a sour note, whether that was to please the Green Party, whether it was something else, who the hell knows. But the fact that a guy like Jimmy is more toxic to Cornel West than this fucking guy, it's like, you're right. I mean, look, for the longest time, I said, I don't think this is a grift or a hustle. I'm not so sure anymore. I'm honestly not so sure anymore. If you're taking $3,300 checks from this guy and getting so indignant when you get pushback, it'd be one thing if you said, look,
right, that's the worst part of it.
That's the worst part of it, is the defending him. And yeah, we have disagreements, but I love him and God bless him. Look, if you're running as an anti-duopoly candidate outside the two-party system and you want to say, hey, listen, money is money. I need every dollar I can get my hands on because I'm running as an extreme underdog. And so I don't know why this guy donated, but a dollar is a dollar no matter who it comes from. All right, I can respect that. You're fine. I don't like it, but I can take it. This whole thing where I'm a free black man and don't question me or else you're a racist, which is the implication there. And brother Harlan's got a precious family. I love him dearly, even though I don't agree with him. It's like, come on, what is this? What is this?
And tying it to the Palestinian cause is particularly disgraceful, in my opinion. And it just, seeing him falling back on his shtick with the jazz, and I'm a jazz man, it just all the more makes it look like a hustle. And one of our viewers, Tara, she pointed this out on Twitter, and it's a very good point, or X or whatever we're calling it now. Why is it that Cornell is in the same social circles as Harlan Crow? And this starts to really peel back the curtain in a way of who he is. Right? Like, why does he know all these people? And we were kind of chalking it up to, well, he's coming out of a kind of Christian tradition of embracing everybody. Yeah, there's a difference between that and defending brother Harlan Crow and taking his money for your campaign and then trying to call people a racist for calling you out on it. Like that's a fucking bullshit artist. I'm sorry.
What could be more fascistic than supporting George W. Bush for re-election in 2004? I mean, that alone, for me, that's as fascist as it gets. What about bribing a Supreme Court justice? Is that a fascist?
That alone.
Because he spends a lot of time harping about how Donald Trump is a neo-fascist. Well, if Donald Trump's a neo-fascist, the guy who smeared John Kerry's military service in order to re-elect the most murderous fascist president this country's ever had, number one, and who bribed the Supreme Court justice, that's not a fascist?
And to take that and not only not accept moral responsibility, what he's demonstrated here to me, and even right up to last time we covered him, I said, I don't think it's a hustle. I just think he's not good, right? Now I'm starting to say, no, man, it's a fucking hustle, because you look at this behavior and he's using the same kind of framing and language he uses for everything else to defend Harlan Crow, somebody who was just very recently in the headlines for buying a Supreme Court justice.
Right.
As you say, if he came out and was like, hey, I'm running as an independent, I don't agree with this guy politically, but if he wants to give me money, that's not what he's saying. He's justifying it. He's using the cheapest tactics of presenting himself as a victim and really in a disgusting way tying this issue to social justice causes and ideas. That's really low to do that, to defend, to use those tactics to defend these actions. So at this point, yeah, I gave him the benefit of the doubt even through all this. Now, not so much.
Yeah, it's getting awfully difficult for sure. Janice Anderson, thanks to the $9.99. Appreciate it. There's a loophole that allows political candidates to donate remaining campaign fund to 501c organizations they own after losing. Oh, that's interesting. They can then transfer those funds to their own shell corporation as pay for services rendered. That's interesting. So that could be something. I mean, that might be something in Cornell's case, too. I know you brought that up. That this was before we did the Cornell segment. This was in response to the Cenk segment. But maybe that's maybe there's something to do with that with Cornell as well. Who knows? But
Sure.
Thanks for bringing that up. I did not know that. Pastor Marty, thanks for the $5. Cenk grilled Vivek in an interview on TYT over super PAC money and then chided him for only being at 7% in the polls. Yeah, I didn't watch that one. Like I said, that one again, look at how unserious these people are. Cenk and Kyle, and like how are you actually, in a position to get people invested in these bullshit campaigns given the seriousness of what's going on in the world right now? And how could you even be all in for the Democrats right now? It's just it's very sad when you look at who the so-called left have produced in this cycle. You got rabid Zionist RFK Jr. You got Mr. fucking jazz man over here, which increasingly just looks like a straight hustle. You got the Topanga Canyon guru. It's sad. It's very sad what the so-called left has produced. Well, it's sad cycle. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean it's sad on one level, but on the other hand, this is all they could produce because no serious person would bother running against Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination. It's not a winnable fight, right? And when it comes to mounting an independent campaign, I mean, yeah, I think there is tremendous opportunity there. And you're right, on that level, it's really a shame that like nobody's able to do it. RFK's polling in the last round of polling, we'll probably do something like this on Wednesday, is quite good. He was polling at 21 points, I think, 21 or 22 in the latest general election poll, which means that's a three-way race. I mean, if he's polling at 20 points, that's a legit three-way contest right there.
Well, that's also a statement on how horrible the other choices are, because whatever we might say about the solidity of Trump's base, they don't represent the country. Most people don't like Donald Trump. He's not popular, broadly speaking. He's popular with a very small number of people who dominate Republican primaries.
Right, exactly. Bonzo Beans, thanks for the $1. What's the opposite of cream of the crop rises to the top? I don't know. I'd have to come up. You have to give you a little more time to think of a rhyme for that. But thank you for the $1. Pardon me. Crab eaters.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
There you go. We'll go with that. Give you an answer. I'm a commie, generally pretty supportive of China, but it discredits us to get defensive over mild criticisms. Hey, there you go. Now you're speaking Russell's language. Free speech is a core American value. We blow it off at our peril.
Thank you. Like, I'm pretty supportive of China overall. I mean, how much more supportive can you be than I think it would be a more peaceful world if China were in charge?
Right.
Like that, I mean, come on.
Thanks, Crab Eaters, real. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes to Norm Fink on Rumble. Yeah, I'm going to try to make that happen. I'm really going to try to make that happen. If we interview him, it will be on Rumble because now we're getting a lot of viewership on Rumble, and I think that could be possibly our best show ever if we got Norm on Rumble to talk about this. So, yes, we will try to make that happen. I should have done it today. Pissed at myself, but thanks for reminding me in the chat. Matt Truck, thanks for the $10. Thanks for the Rumble rants, folks. Very, very helpful. Didn't Ralph Nader say it's about how fast they could drop to their knees? Yes. AOC wearing knee pads in congressional session. Well, tune into C-SPAN for that. Yes, that's a follow-up to a super chat a while back. DC, thanks for the $2. Force the vote, expose TYT as hypocritical frauds. Indeed. Popular search.
I mean, honestly, I think very much like the Van Boys after them, when they asked for money for something that they then did not do, that revealed them as grifters. Remember, they were gonna have this whole investigative reporting unit to fill the void of what the mainstream media won't investigate. Wait, they hired Nomiki Konst for 10 minutes and then pocket the rest of the money?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that never materialized. DC, popular surge of grifter was TYT projection at JD. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember who started throwing that term around. I don't really remember the origin of that, but it's obviously gotten around.
I mean, at one time, that was a phrase that only people who were really into old detective novels and film noir were familiar with.
Yeah, right, exactly. There's the John Cusack movie, right?
Yep.
The grifters.
Grifters.
Yeah, that's where I learned the term. I didn't even hear it in popular discourse. Ballot deadlines are BS and didn't apply to Bloomberg. Well, they just let him buy his way on, pretty much. I think he just bought his way on, didn't he? But obviously, you know, Cornell and RFK, they don't have that kind of money. They got to do it the old-fashioned way. So would Cenk. Janice Anderson, thanks for the $4.99. Under the Social Security Act, President can call for a national health emergency, yes, and age and disability restrictions on Medicare. Yes, I did know that one. Thank you. First Amendment is fiction that may as well be toilet paper. Yeah, it seems like that now. Thank you, DC. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll take two more, then we'll do our last segment, then we'll take the rest of our super chats, and then we will break for the Q&A over on Rumble. Thank you all for being here. 1172 in the YouTube chat, 574 in the Rumble chat. What a crowd. Please hit that follow button if you're over on Rumble. Please hit that subscribe button over here on YouTube, and please like this stream. It was a joke about AOC and Tulsi, but I didn't want to put names in there. Oh, I understand. Timing was way off. All right. Well, that explains it. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for clearing that up. It lacked context. Trying to shill. Keep Mal's name out of your mouth, Cornell. There you go. Tell him. All righty. Final segment of the evening. Russell, do you want to set up what we're about to see vis-a-vis the Joe Biden mystery check for $200,000?
Okay, yeah. So, in yet another page in the Biden book, that if this fact pattern were attached to the Trump family, it would be all you would be hearing about from the media. So, you know, there's an impeachment investigation of Joe Biden. And Comer just dropped a little video on X explaining that they found that James Biden got a bankrupt hospital to pay him out a $200,000 loan. And on the same day, he turned around a $200,000 payment to the big guy. So now they actually have the check. There is no plausible deniability here. Now, I've heard some noises that they funneled Saudi Arabian money into the hospital, or that James Biden promised that he could do that for them. Clearly, you don't just, if you're a bankrupt hospital, in any case, give $200,000 to James Biden without expecting some kind of service that he can provide. He clearly promised them something that he could do for them. And then he turned around the money to Joe Biden. So now they're trying to say, because he in the memo said it was a loan repayment. So now they're trying to look into the bank records to see if there actually was any such loan from Joe Biden to James Biden.
All right. Well, let's take a look at Comer's video where he gets into detail.
Bank accounts belonging to... This summer, Joe Biden said, "Where's the money?" Well, we found some. We're still digging into evidence subpoenaed from bank accounts belonging to Hunter Biden, the son of President Joe Biden, and James and Sarah Biden, the brother and sister-in-law of the president. A document that we're releasing today raises new questions about how President Biden personally benefited from his family's shady influence peddling of his last name and their access to him. Bank records obtained by the House Committee on Oversight have revealed a $200,000 direct payment from James and Sarah Biden to Joe Biden in the form of a personal check. Here's some important context about this check we've obtained in our investigation. In 2018, James Biden received $600,000 in loans from AmeriCorps, a financially distressed and failing rural hospital operator. According to bankruptcy court documents, James Biden received these loans, quote, based upon representations that his last name, Biden, could open doors and that he could obtain a large investment from the Middle East based on his political connections, end quote.
Sounds on the up and up to me. I don't know what I don't know what all this conspiracy mongering is about. Sounds like another day in Wilmington to me.
Yeah, this is what the Republicans do. You know, they create these fake scandals besmirching the name of the Honorable Bidens.
Yeah, exactly.
March 1st, 2018, AmeriCorps wired a $200,000 loan into James and Sarah Biden's personal bank account, not their business bank account. And then on the very same day, James Biden wrote a $200,000 check from this same personal bank account to Joe Biden. James Biden wrote this check to Joe Biden as a, quote, loan repayment. AmeriCorps, a distressed company, loaned money to James Biden, who then sent it to Joe Biden. Even if this was a personal loan repayment, it's still troubling that Joe Biden's ability to be paid back by his brother depended on the success of his family's shady financial dealings. Some immediate questions President Biden must answer for the American people. Does he have documents proving he lent such a large sum of money to his brother? And what were the terms of such financial agreement? Did he have similar financial agreements with other family members?
I mean, it seems like even if there were an above-board explanation for that, that still wouldn't explain the initial transaction. Am I right? Or am I missing something there?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's such transparent influence peddling.
Right. Like, exactly. Like, how
There's
would
no
that explain the initial outlay of money?
Right. Well, and he makes the point that the money went into his personal account, not his business account.
Right.
Like this is just so obvious that the whole Biden family was. It looks like it was mostly the other family members that were really benefiting from a lot of these transactions. But hey, what does 10% for the big guy mean? We got to set aside money for dad. Like, you know, they have texts of Hunter Biden saying that. You know, and the more you look at it, the more of a tragic figure Hunter Biden seems to be. Like, what really emerges is it just looks like they used this guy as the family bag man.
Right. Exactly. Now I'll play the rest of this. Jake, I'm getting reports of some trolls over on Rumble. If you could block them and bounce them, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
That led them to make similar large payments to him. And did he know that the same day James Biden wrote him a check for $200,000, James Biden had just received a loan for the exact same amount from business dealings with a company that was in financial distress and failing? The House Oversight Committee will soon announce our next investigative actions and continue to follow the money.
All right. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene went on Fox News and apparently produced the evidence in question. So here she is, friend of the show, who we love very much, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And my pal, Marjorie, thank you for doing this, by the way. Very kind on a Friday. Were you surprised that half or more of the speech was about Ukraine?
Oh, it's Friday.
And
This guy
that
sounds fucking
60%
wasted.
or more of the money is about Ukraine? I mean, I thought coming back from Israel, that's where Biden was going to take us, but he didn't.
No, I'm not surprised at all, Larry, because we all know exactly why Joe Biden is so obsessed with Ukraine. He and his family made a lot of money on their corrupt business deals from countries like Ukraine, the Middle East, and China, and many more. And we just got evidence of that today that we put out.
I heard there's something about a couple $100,000 loan that was washed through something that Jim Biden was doing and wound up with Papa Biden? What's that all about, Marjorie?
That's about this check right here, Larry.
Like Bugs Bunny,
this is a copy of the
like
check that
boom, here it
Joe
is.
Biden's brother, James
It's the
Biden, wrote to
Acme
him.
$200,000
And this is a
check.
classic
Exactly.
example.
All right, we don't need her to explain it. We just heard Comer explain it. But yeah, look, I've said in the past, I think Hunter's legal troubles might be their way to get Joe Biden off of the ticket. And, I think in a way, all of this stuff may just work to the Democrats' advantage if they can somehow use it to get Joe Biden off of the ticket, because it's looking more and more like he can't win.
Clearly, he can't win. At the same time, they don't have anyone who can. I mean, I guess they have people who have a better chance. I mean, I'll grant you, I think Newsom has a better chance than Joe Biden. Yeah. I don't think he has a good chance.
Yeah, no, it's not a good chance, but it's certainly better than Biden's at this point. I mean, Biden is almost a lame duck at this point. I mean, it is almost impossible to imagine that he can win. And so all of this legal stuff might be, a sort of blessing in disguise for the Democrats if they can use this as pretext to get him the fuck out of the way, because they have to get him out of the way. There's just no way to overcome these numbers. No way. Especially now the Israel thing. I mean, the Israel thing is going to hurt any Democrat. There was a story that came out. We'll probably cover this Wednesday. Dearborn, Michigan, furious at Joe Biden for his response. Dearborn, very high population Muslim community in an absolutely essential swing state for the Democrats to carry. They're coming out in droves, vowing not to vote for him. And if you're Joe Biden, your margin for error in this campaign is zero. You cannot afford to lose any more votes for any more reasons than you're already going to. And so that alone makes it almost impossible. I mean, if he loses Michigan, that's it. That's the game. And so, all this stuff should be a warning to the Democrats. You have to make some sort of change. Like, Cenk is not wrong that Biden can't win. Obviously, what he's doing is ludicrous.
Absurd.
But the premise is correct. Biden cannot win this race.
No. But because what you're seeing is so many people are so furious with what's happened in the country under his administration that they're either not going to vote, and I think that'll be a lot of it. I don't think you're going to get a lot of Muslims coming out and voting for Donald Trump. They're just not going to vote.
Right. Exactly. They will stay home.
And I think that's the same thing you're going to see in the black community, although you will have more that will vote for Donald Trump, I think, than in the Muslim community. But yeah, all of these constituencies that Democrats cannot win without are just furious with this administration.
Yeah, as they should be. As they should be. Anybody who's investing in the Democrats for 4 more years is just not living in the same world I am. I can't see it. I cannot see it. T-Bone, thanks for the $5. Also, think about inviting Rabbi Brant Rosen, please. Russell, did you work on the Larry Sanders show back in the day? You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you, T-Bone. Russell, you did not work on the Larry Sanders show.
I did not.
But I will look into that name for sure. Thank you. Only Christ. Yeah, pleasuring horses. Yeah, it's a good one. It's funny. See, the Rumble chat's where it's at.
We have the best, most depraved audience on YouTube. Proving it every day. And on Rumble.
And
now
on Rumble. Of course. Keep her tracking for $1. I'm a jazz man. I improvise. Translation. I'm Flake who doesn't know what I'm doing and in over my head. Yeah, that always struck me as a caveat.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a jazz man. I improvise is like warning. Hey, if I start making inexplicably stupid decisions, don't say I didn't warn you. Hey, I told you I was a jazz man. It means I'll basically do whatever I want anytime, and you'll just have to accept that was a risk going in. I agree.
I never said I was any good.
Right, exactly. Hey. you get what you get. DC, thanks for the $2. Huge ass, see more butts 2024. Folks, last call for Super Chats. We are heading over to Rumble very, very soon. So go to rumble.com/do dissidents and find us over there in just a few minutes. There will be a 5-minute intermission between the end of the show and the start to our Rumble exclusive Q&A. So you will have time. We're not going to start immediately. We'll give everybody time to get over there. But if you want to stick around for the post-show Q&A, that's where you go, rumble.com/do dissidents. You'll see the live stream will come up as soon as you get to that landing page.
All right. A couple of general announcements. I'm surprised my associate didn't mention this tonight because he's usually right on this shit, and he's got perfect radio voice
what did I forget to do?
For these kinds of pitches. Okay, so because of the out-of-control censorship, we've had to not monetize a lot of our videos lately. Now we're not going to stop covering these subjects because that's what we're here to do. But if you can sign up on Patreon, that helps the operation quite a lot, because at this point we're monetizing like 1 out of 4 videos, if that.
Yeah, we're not monetizing a lot of our Israel clips because obviously the clips that get monetized, they're more sensitive about the content because their advertisers are on that content. So like they're more lenient about what you could do if their advertisers are not on there. So yeah, if you notice, a lot of the clips that have been getting a lot of views, we haven't gotten paid for any of those. Yeah, we're doing those on the arm, as they say.
And we are trying to go full time, and as you can see, you know, we are very into what we do. The more time we have to do this, the more Rachel Maddow kind of things we're going to see. And the more things like Keaton's documentary about Jose that we can do. So we're really trying to be able to do it full time. And sadly, it looks like this is going to be a main topic for quite a while. So we cannot monetize those videos with what's going on with the censorship right now. So please consider coming over to Patreon. Second point, to explain why we're doing the call-ins over on Rumble, we're getting a pretty big audience. Sooner or later, some psycho is going to call in and say something just to get us kicked off YouTube. Right. So we're getting ahead of it now. Sooner or later, somebody's going to go full Son of Sam on one of these live streams.
They'll just kamikaze the show.
Exactly.
Exactly. And also, you know, some of you guys, look, it's not your guys' job to know what you can and can't say on the YouTube channel. So some of you guys might innocently say something, you know, like we spend a lot of time now looking into what we can and can't say so that we can keep the channel in, you know, relatively good standing. But, you know, it's not your job to know that. So we want to do it to protect you guys, too, the callers, because I'm sure you would never forgive yourself as a caller if you called in and got us thrown off. So this way you don't have to worry so much. You can, you know, don't say anything deliberately inflammatory just for its own sake, because that's just not cool to do. But this way you can breathe a little easier. All right.
I, as much as I know, I made a joke tonight. I saw the look on Keaton's face. We'll talk about it when we go over there. I know which joke you were like.
I don't know. I don't remember, actually.
I'm not even gonna say it until we go over there.
I don't recall. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so that's the plan. Also, we want to consistently build the Rumble audience. So this is a way to get people over there and acquainted with that platform on a regular basis. So that's another reason why we want to do those over there. We'll take some more before we make the switch. Huge ass, see more butts. Thank you. Yes, we got that one already, DC. Appreciate that. Everton Wrights gave us quite a few here. Thank you, Everton. I've been saying West is fake. All the black PMC are. Yeah, you have been saying that for a long time.
You have.
Credit, sir. You have. Props to you. When you're right, you're right. That's a New York Jewish phrase. That's what my Jewish grandfather used to say. When he's right, he's right. When you're right, you're right.
When you're right, you're right.
Exactly. Same for Jill and all of that class. No different from the Dems. The green isn't a mess by accident. It's by choice. Yep. Academic equals system. Know thy enemy. Yeah. Academic equals system. That's what I say all the time. Indeed. And I always had that reservation about Cornell. I just said that if he can get, you know, if he can make an impact, if he can spoil the race for Biden,
he can get over 5%.
Anyway.
That's what it was about.
And not necessarily even 5%, because 5%, I mean, yeah, that would be a good goal if he could transform the Green Party into something useful.
Right.
But really, the goal was just to be the difference between Biden and Trump, just to cause that chaos, cause that panic, force a big moment, right?
Make Gotham scream.
Exactly. Make something happen. Everton Wright Jr., thanks for the $5. If you look into West and Bernie real past, you'll find so much obvious things to show they're all fake. They are controlled opposition by choice. I'll give you guys a little thing. You know, Jose started out a Bernie bro, as we get into in the documentary. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do a documentary on Jose. He has a very interesting political journey from getting involved with the Schiller Institute and the LaRouche organization as like an early teen, then getting very involved with the Bernie campaign, then voting for Trump, then becoming not necessarily a supporter of AOC, but someone who thought AOC was at least sincere in her desire to make change, then voting for Trump again, and now he is this post-duopoly anti-war activist. But anyway, long story short, I have some footage in the documentary of Bernie's acceptance speech when he won the mayoral race in Vermont, and it was on public access TV. So literally the guy who films it, because this was 1987, he drew his opening credits on like pieces of paper and held them in front of the camera, and then the paper goes away and it's Bernie speaking. It's wild footage. So yeah, that was fun stuff. But thank you, Everton. Study Africa and Caribbean revolutionary leaders. You would never fallen for West black leaders to do shit to better black people's life. That's the difference. Yeah. No, I hear that for sure. Franklin Worsham, thanks for the $5. Democrats can show up with a truckload of pieces of paper at any polling station in the nation. Careful, Biden will win as much as...
See, this is what we're talking
about.
about.
This is what we're talking about. I mean, YouTube's a little looser
Safe
on
and
that
effective.
Now. Safe and effective, yes. Polling stations are safe and effective, and you're insane. Biden will win as much as I want to pretend otherwise. I don't think so. I don't think so. And look, I've been saying all along, don't underestimate the Republicans' ability to fuck things up. I just can't imagine. I shouldn't say this, actually. Nothing should surprise me after 2004. After George W. If the country can reelect George W. Bush, anything can happen. At this point, though, it does seem that the age of the internet
Kerry was pretty off-putting, man.
Kerry was off-putting. So was Trump, though. He has very high negatives. But I think the difference is probably the internet. The difference is, in 2004, it was hard to find out the Iraq War was a lie if you didn't pay attention. Now you don't have to pay that much attention. I mean, people are on Facebook. You have social media. Enough information gets out there where it's just so obvious that this is a road to hell. I just can't imagine the country signing up for 4 more years of this. I don't know how the world can survive 4 more years of not Joe Biden. It's not about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is worse than a bloodthirsty warmonger. Joe Biden is an empty vessel through which the worst elements of the U.S. empire are free to flow. He's more dangerous.
That's a very good way to put it.
And that makes him more dangerous in a way because there's no human element, there's no human check on anything that these faceless vampires want to, get through.
He's Philip K. Dick, like a lot of great sci-fi writers, who was ahead of his time. He kind of predicted CGI. He kind of predicted a Joe Biden-like president who would be CGI generated. I mean, he didn't use that term, but that's basically what he envisioned. Where, he's just this figure that they created in computers. That's kind of what Joe Biden is, right? He just goes up there and says what they tell him to say and does what they tell him to do.
Yeah, indeed. SB, thanks for the $5. Cornell is overrated. Look up Dr. Claude Anderson, OG reparations advocate, and Tariq Nasheed. I've heard of Tariq Nasheed. I never heard of Anderson. Both heavily influenced Marcel Dixon. Good. Thank you.
Interesting.
I will look into that for sure. Lloyd Trackwell, thank you for the $5. Newsom, like Trump, takes care of his base. He offers a real choice. Climate change real, banning gas engines. Loves migrants from South America. Sanctuary City. Look, I think Newsom is the strongest that they have. That's not saying much. Again, I just think these issues have become too big, and this is why I think Trump's hand remains so strong in the Republican primary, because the issues are too big. Like DeSantis versus Biden, who cares? That's not going to make a difference on any of this shit. I mean, Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden are the same on Israel, the same on Ukraine. Like you're not really fighting a battle with DeSantis. It's like Trump is the only guy who's standing in their way. Now, the extent to which he will stand in their way, what is his resolve? That's a question mark. It's a huge question mark. But it's clear they don't want him, which means you at least have a battle with Trump. And so that's how I think it's shaping up. But thank you, Lloyd. Yikum24 with West and RFK having disconnected from the left. I would like to see you fellas interview Dr. Shiva. Well, no, he's I'm not doing that. He has the most to teach about movement building. Dr. Shiva, I couldn't even do on Rumble. I had to do that shit on fucking 4chan or something if we interviewed that guy. But yeah, no, I mean, Dr. Shiva was absolutely obnoxious to Misty Winston, our friend, and that just seeing how he conducted himself that interview. It's obvious why nobody wants to interview him. He blames it. He calls them. He says Jimmy Dore's a pussy. Glenn Greenwald's a pussy. No, you are an insufferable asshole. That's why people don't want to talk to you. Sometimes the problem is you. And watching him on Misty's show,
it's a good rule.
Was very
of thumb.
obvious.
Like if one person tells you you're an asshole, it's probably about them. If everyone tells you you're an asshole, it's probably about you.
It's probably about you. Yeah, exactly. All righty, folks. That's all for our show tonight. We are going to wrap things up, and then we do have a post-show Q&A on Rumble. Huge crowd over there already. 751 in the Rumble chat for our post-show Q&A, and 960 over here on YouTube. So thank you all very much for being here tonight. We appreciate you. We have 3 callers on the line. Actually, we have 4 callers on the line. So we're going to have a fast-paced but chock full of content Q&A session. Love to see that. You guys are welcome to submit questions in the Rumble chat over the next 5 minutes. If you put a few bucks on it, that makes sure that Jake will see it and flag it, and that helps support the show, so we love you for that. But if you want to ask some other questions, if Jake catches them and puts them up for us, we will answer those as well. If you're not sticking around for the Q&A, we'll see you back here Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Twitch. Right now, folks, go to rumble.com/DoDissidents to stick around for the question and answer period of the show. Patrons and paid Substack subscribers will have call-in access. Everybody else, you're welcome to post stuff in the chat. Put @DoDissidents in your question so that Jake can have an easier time seeing it, and we will see you over there. Everybody else, we will see you Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Thank you so much for this evening. Great to see you as always. Until we see you again, whether it's over on Rumble right now or on Wednesday, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.